Hello everyone, welcome to episode 83 of FPL Blackbox. My name is Az and I'm joined by the returning Mark Southerns. How are you feeling, Mark? You all better now?
Good evening. I am tip top. I'm feeling great and I can feel myself getting back into FPL mode, which is great. I was struggling during the international break, I've got to say, for motivation, but now seeing your rosy face, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm ready to engage again.
Rosy face. Okay, I've actually got a proper beer this time rather than a non-alcoholic one.
Yeah.
So yeah, cheers. Hi everyone. We're back. I did a stream earlier with Janny where I forgot how to do literally everything, press any buttons or talk sense. So I've had a bit of a kind of a prep into this. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But
now you tell me.
Now
you didn't
I
say
tell
that
you
before we went on there.
Yeah, I know. Oh, God, yeah. Well, at the moment it looks all right. The sound's working and no complaints. So I think fingers crossed we're all good. We've got a lot to talk about today because obviously you haven't been around for ages, and there's lots of new things going on and lots of big games this weekend. But most importantly, I'm going to get to talk about Brighton's new manager, which I'm really excited about. Really excited about.
Fair enough. You had to listen to my Cooper nonsense before the start of the season, so I guess that's fair enough. Yeah.
Spoilers.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
Spoilers. He is amazing. I'm so excited.
On paper, or or in reality.
As
on
a man,
paper,
man and a manager, he looks a fantastic appointment. So I'm really excited. But yeah, we'll get into that as we go. Before we do that, let's have a word from our sponsor, which is NordVPN. They're sponsoring this video. Thank you so much to them. For anyone who isn't aware of who NordVPN are, they are a way to protect yourself online and also watch shows like Mark does from different countries that might not be in your area.
Colombo for the win.
Are you ploughing through Colombo?
Yeah, I've seen them all 12 times each episode, but that doesn't stop me rewatching them. I'm loving it.
Are you doing your Colombo sleepovers? That's what you were doing last time, wasn't it?
Not yet. At Christmas, we have that every Christmas.
Okay, nice,
yeah.
nice.
Three of my mates come over and we do that.
Yeah.
Don't knock it.
No. Hey, I'm not saying anything. So NordVPN is the fastest VPN out there. It's basically the best VPN you can buy. They sponsor these videos, a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not happy with it, you get 100% refund. 3 different types of packages. You've got the standard, which is your VPN, your malware protection at the click of a button, and an ad blocker. You've got your Plus, which gives you a password manager as well, which is literally a godsend. The password manager that I've got has basically completely changed my life, and I'm trying to convince my dad to get it, but he still insists on his little book in his safe with all his passwords written down.
Oh my word! Has he got a little black book with them all written down?
Oh yeah.
Chris, come on.
They're getting better. They are getting a bit better. They're using more secure passwords, but I still really want them to use a password manager because it would be a lot better. Then you've got the complete, and when I say complete, I mean that gives you everything that we got before, and you're looking at like £4 a month, something like that, and that gives you a terabyte of encrypted cloud storage as well. So if you've got sensitive photos or documents, like my Mark Southerns blackmail folder of all the terrible WhatsApps he sent me over the years, which I will unveil when you wrong me.
I need to hack you and delete that immediately.
You won't be able to because I've got my encrypted storage. But do give NordVPN a go. Obviously, internet security is incredibly important, and protecting yourself from phishing and cyber attacks, especially if you're using public Wi-Fi as well. Don't use public Wi-Fi without using a VPN. And if you just use our code, which is in the description as well, you get 4 months completely free on top of all the other stuff that we talked about. So give it a go. Give NordVPN a go. We're both using it. I think it's great. It just hasn't slowed my connection down at all. I feel really safe. So it's really nice.
Can you turn me up, Az? Because a few people are saying again that my volume is too low.
Can I turn you up?
So,
yes, I can.
Make sure you turn me up and not yourself up.
I know. There you go. You're up +3 now. So
beautiful. I hope that's better for everybody because it's important you hear me because I'm going to balance out this pro Brighton chat that's going to happen later.
Hey, we haven't taken your manager, so you should be grateful.
No, I am better. No, I'm pleased about that.
Yep.
Much better, says everybody. Let's go, Az. Let's kick it off.
Beautiful. Let's go. Right. So let's go into game week, whatever it was, 7, 8. What are we now? Going into 9? Game week 8. Whatever. It was so long ago. Got my team up first. I had Henderson in goal with 2. Diaz and Trippier with 6 and 5. And Emerson got 1 point. I think he played about 3 minutes. Pereira with 1. Maddison, my boy, came in. Look at that. Straight away. 7 points. We talk about Leicester quite a lot, actually. They're very interesting. Marcelli with 3, and Foden scored as well with 8. Haaland with 6, Kane captain with 20, Mitrovic 2, 61 points. I was pretty happy with that, but then lots of the other highly owned players all did well as well. So it ended up being fairly average, but I got a green arrow, so can't really complain.
I think it's better than average. The average was 50, right? I mean, you're obviously comparing yourself to the company that we keep amongst the community, and yeah, it was an okay score. Whereas when you get to mine, it's a bad score. But yeah, I mean, like no big stars. I mean, you got the captaincy right with Kane, right? And he could have had more, couldn't he? He could have had more.
It's always frustrating when a team scores that many goals and you've got what I thought was the best player from that team. Given that I didn't think Son was going to play. Congrats if anyone held on to him and then kept him.
Yeah.
Do you know he's 2 points behind Salah, Mark? If
Yeah,
only someone.
I said, didn't I? I said, like, yeah, we'll see after 6 or 7 weeks where Son and Salah are. And it looked like Salah was going to destroy him, but no, clearly not. 2 points in it. And as I said to you, Son doesn't even have to match Salah because of the £1 million difference. So if he gets close to him, I would have won. But obviously, I've bottled it since then and got Salah in, then got him out again, and blah blah blah. Anyway, enough about my travails. But yeah, I mean, I think Maddison and Foden right delivered for you. That was the big plus, isn't it? When you get those, when the mid-price midfielders deliver for you, because it's been hard to nail those mid-price midfielders this season. I think we started the season thinking you had to have one or two. Diaz was in the mix, Saka, of course. Zaha has come through, and then we're going to talk about a few more tonight. But Maddison's definitely in the mix, and he's the kind of fan favourite at the moment, isn't he? And you got on him early. You always love Maddison, and your boy delivered. And then Foden, you've always swelled by him as well. And he came out of it outscoring Haaland. So yeah, that made the difference for you, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Kind of just went back to some of the players that have done quite well for me in the past. I mean, Foden has frustrated me previously, but when Grealish is in the side and Foden hasn't got to hug that left-hand side, I just think he is a great option because he can drift around. He goes more central. He has good chances, good opportunities. He's got amazing players feeding him, and he can feed amazing players. It's just when Grealish doesn't play and he's there for the balance with Cancelo still tucking in, that he tends to drift out a bit wide, and that's not really when you want to see him. But he was poor for England, he was okay in the first game, wasn't he? But one of our better players, but still not really clicking for England. And then he was off the pitch, wasn't he, when we started our comeback against Germany? So hasn't been the best international break for him. But hasn't been the best international break for a lot of players. Maddison wasn't even in the squad. Tony didn't play. Trent was, ousted. Strange one.
Yeah, and I guess the issue you've got is game week 12 with your City players, and Foden's probably, I presume, going to go soon with that in mind. So, he's probably only a short-term option for you, but we'll talk about that a bit later, I'm sure.
We shall indeed. Your game week then, you got 51 points. So
pretty rubbish again. I got the captaincy right, went with Kane. I didn't have Haaland, so I didn't have any choice. I guess that's the difference, right? I didn't have Haaland. Had De Bruyne, he outscored Haaland as it was, got the 10 points, did well again. But Bowen didn't deliver, Gibbs-White didn't deliver, Tony didn't deliver, and they along with Perisic were my players that I was looking for to make the difference. So, those 4 players, Perisic, Gibbs-White, Tony, Bowen, were the kind of players that not every team had, and I needed at least one of them to come in, and they didn't. So that was the difference between my team and yours. My midfielders didn't come in at all, apart from De Bruyne. And De Bruyne was just covering Haaland, really, wasn't he? So, yeah, I don't look at my team going forward. I've made a couple of changes over the break. I made changes early. I'll talk about that at the end of the show. But I look at my team and I'm happy where it is now. So, I in a way, 5.4 million rank, but in a way, it gives me a lot of freedom in my thinking, and it's like I've got so little to lose being ranked where I am, in that I can play the wild card now, I can make some hits, be a bit aggressive, take some risks where I feel they're warranted, and play a bit off the cuff, because at 5 million in the world, why not? Why wouldn't I do that? I've got nothing to protect and everything to go for. So, I'm going into this next period thinking, let's just get some strings and green arrows together and see where it takes me. I'm under no pressure because of where I am, and no one's shooting at me. I'm not getting a load of flack for it, although perhaps I deserve it. But
there is.
Are you about to?
There is. No, I'm just going to. There is one person giving you a bit of flack.
Oh yeah.
At the moment.
Who was that? Gianni? Is it?
No, it's my dad, who I messaged you about.
This is a man who keeps his passwords in a black book.
Well, I went on a walk with him the other day, And he wanted me to pass on to you. He just wanted me to tell you that not having Haaland is absolutely ridiculous. And it's all very well trying to be clever, but you've got to make sure you've got the basics covered. That's what he wanted me to tell you. So
and you know what? I could take stick on Twitter. I could take that. But when your dad is having a go, that does hurt, right? That does actually have an impact. And you can tell him that Delia agrees with Mr. Phillips. Thanks, Delia, for backing me up. You can tell your dad that, I told you, Haaland's installed in my team now. He's part of the two transfers I had to make. But, I was right to go Kane over Haaland this week. It worked out. And De Bruyne did his thing. He outscored Haaland. So those two did their job. It's just everywhere else in my team, look at it, no returns anywhere other than the Trippier assist. So, it wasn't the decision not to have Haaland that hurt me. It was the fact that, my other supporting cast didn't come in.
Not this week, but it has been.
Just a bit. I'm not doing a full retro on those weeks. They're gone now. Let's move on.
It's going to be a short retro, isn't it, next season when we're both just like, well, we never started with Haaland. That's probably an error. Excellent. Great and the good. Next, thank you to Greyhead, as always, for these. I don't really know how to take this. We are third from bottom, me, and bottom you, Savanish Singh is our filling in the shit sandwich that is our season. There's no other way to describe it.
Sorry, Savanish, you don't want to be the filling in that kind of sandwich, but you have to take it for now.
What is interesting is Gray has calculated the captain scores of everyone. I don't know if he says, I've got the best captain score of everyone in the great and the good somehow, and you've got the worst.
Right. Yeah. Well, at least I got stuff to improve on, right? At least I can look at that and go, oh, okay, well, that's an area. Whereas you got no excuse. Where are you going to go with that? So, and it's interesting as well. Look at my captains. I've moved it around, right? KDB, Son, Haaland. I'm the only one to have captained Son at any point, but I didn't captain Son in the week he got his hat trick, and that's my season, right? Son got his hat trick last weekend. Against Leicester. He didn't get it against Southampton at home. He could have got it against Southampton at home, but he didn't. He got an assist and that was all. I've just been, I've missed the target with my captain picks, right? It's one of those things. I don't think any of those players, KDB, Son and Haaland, are bad captains. I've just chosen to move it around and missed the points. It's just been unfortunate, I guess. Whereas you look at everybody else and they've been very consistent, haven't they, with their captains? And only two players, Haaland or Salah, which... dull, don't I say it? But effective.
Yeah, it does tend to happen most seasons, doesn't it? We tend to get two or three players max who people are going to captain most weeks because it's that kind of consist. That's what you pay for. You pay for that kind of consistent. I'd be more surprised if we saw like some Madisons and some Bowens and stuff in there. Yeah. So it's not that surprising, but I don't really understand how I had quite a good captain run last season as well, so I kind of carried that on this year. It's just all my other players that seem to be letting me down week on week. So, a bit of a shame, but early days. We'll kind of see where it goes. But shout out to FPL Harry, right at the top, 78k in the world. Oh, no, sorry, 33k in the world. Quite a way ahead of like Ben Crellin and Finn and Magnus. Magnus, what a couple of weeks he's had. Been following the chess scandals?
I have, and my anal beads are fitted nicely for tonight later on. So don't go buzzing them. It's
something I never thought I'd hear Mark Summons say.
Well, I'm hoping for a sponsor of that now. We've done Manscaped. Should we get that?
Oh, that's going to get that's going to get clipped.
No, what a palaver though. My word, we thought FPL had beef. My God, Plonker needs to get on the chess scene, doesn't he?
It's amazing, isn't
it? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. What can you say? Magnus at the centre of it. I've been DMing him obviously, and he's been telling me all about it. He's got more time to concentrate on FPL. Good wild card, he had Son, didn't he? So landed that. So good luck to him. But if he does want to retire from the chess world, we'll welcome him over with open arms. So
it's impressive. He went up 800,000 places this week off the back of that wild card. We went up 700. Well, I went up 700,000. Sorry, you went up 100,000. Even you Major agreeing.
Thanks.
But to go up 800,000 into from 1 million to 200,000, it just shows, doesn't it? 80 points he got. We can. I'm 17 points behind General. I look at Harry. I'm only 78 points behind Harry. Like that's achievable. It's
Yeah,
doable.
it is. It is. I think what's heartening at the moment as well is our teams are beginning to kind of there's a little bit of difference opening up in the teams. You know, I watched the Scoutcast last night, and you know the three guys there had very different players now for the first time ever, and I think that gives me heart as someone who struggled this season for points and rank. That you know I should have a few players different to everybody else now, and you know it's going to come down to output, right, and getting those picks right, and yeah, we've got to back ourselves to do that and make up some ground. So I think, you know, when it's like everyone's got the same players, those 9 or 10 players in the template are dominating things, it's quite disheartening to fall behind, because then you think, how can I make up ground? But when you see that, you know, people selling Alexander-Arnold, for example,
Absolutely.
you know, and people going back to Salah, and people going for Maddison over Bowen or Zaha over Foden or whatever, you know, there's some real difference makers now in people's teams, and that gives me hope that, you know, I could, if I hit some targets, make up some ground.
I think with this Arsenal and City blank, and with Liverpool with tough fixtures and off form, it's just shaking things up amazingly, because people are going loads of different ways now, and you know we've got Potter coming into Chelsea, who should invigorate some of their assets, and I don't know, it feels like I feel the buzz again. You know, I've struggled a bit at the start of this season, but I feel that kind of. You know, I sold Jesus for Kane, for example, and it didn't feel great, but it was kind of exciting because, you know, I watched that game, and then I was watching the Brentford game, and Jesus scored early, and I thought, oh no, of course he's still a good option. But I don't know, I kind of feel excited and rejuvenated by things. So yeah, we'll kind of see.
And also when Son got the hat trick, it's like I looked at it. It was bittersweet for me, because I was like, why couldn't you have done that when I backed you? But I look at it and think, okay, now. You know, I mean, I always thought he was a credible option anyway, but we were getting turned off from him because he was clearly struggling for some reason. Got goals for South Korea over the break as well. Surely he'll kick on now, and he's going to become a real credible option for that second or even third heavy hitter, depending on how we're setting up. So he's going to be a difference maker, because when we look ahead to the fixtures, there's game week 11, I think, where Spurs have got Everton at home, and you know, if you've got a Spurs player, you're going to consider him for captaincy because Haaland's at Liverpool. So. You know, it's nice. Well, I see some ingredients now that make me feel positive about the potential to catch up and make some ground.
Yep. Right. You ready?
Yeah, go.
Good. Okay. So speaking of excitement and fun and things to rejuvenate me, I'm now going to do a segment on Brighton. And
is it this? I thought you'd leave it till later. Okay.
And Brighton's new manager. And if you're not...
Hold on. Yeah, use of exclamation marks in titles. When did I miss that meeting? When did I okay that?
I'm so excited. I genuinely am really, really excited. Do you think he looks a bit like me? Just for the just as a quick question.
What's going on here now? No, he looks like Robert Downey Jr., doesn't he? That's what he looks like.
Well, I have often been told that I look a little bit like Robert Downey. If you aren't
Downing more like. Anyway, carry on.
If you aren't interested in Brighton, you might want to turn off and do something else. I have been asked.
Hold on, we've gone down to 400 from 1,000.
Yeah, I bet. Just like that. Yeah. But you know, it is relevant. People still have Brighton players in this side, which they bought earlier. There was a lot of worry when Potter left. The fixtures are really bad, as we'll talk about. And so I've been reading up a lot about Zerbi, who I had knew absolutely nothing about. I'm going to be honest. When we signed him, I knew nothing about him. I was looking at some of the other, Knutson, for example, who's at Bodo Glimt. I was looking at him and thinking he would be a good option. And then there was no other interviews. That it was, Bloom wanted Zerbi. He was first choice, and he's come straight in. So just going to give a bit of a background about who he is and kind of what we can expect from Brighton. So he did an interview for Brighton recently, a great interview. He speaks a little bit of English, enough to get through a kind of interview, but he'd obviously kind of planned it. This is what he said. He said, "My idea to Potter is not the same, but things are similar. For my football ideas, I love attack. I love to attack with many players. It's important, the defensive phases, but I love attack." Says it 3 times in one sentence. "If I decide to attack or defend, in my idea, normally it is always better to attack." He said the word attack, I think, 5 times in the space of about 20 seconds. He's a very, very, very attacking manager who likes to play on the front foot. Vincenzo Melodonna has said the fundamental principle of De Zerbi's football is that he wants his team to dominate the game by constructing the game from the back and keeping the ball on the ground. Sassuolo played the most passes in the league. I've got some charts on that as well. The fewest long balls, and I think the third fewest crosses as well, in a very ambitious style of play. He plays with 5 or 6 men attacking. The left back and the right back joins in. More about them in a sec. The idea is to fill the half of the opponent with as many players as possible. So he is going. This is a guy who is going to get the most out of our attacking assets. He has set. So he was in the Ukraine. He was at Sassuolo for 2 seasons. They finished 8th twice. They scored 69 and 64 goals across those games. Brighton have not scored more than 40 goals in a season since being promoted. They had no budget whatsoever as well. They're a bit like Bournemouth. And they missed out on European football on goal difference, as we'll kind of see in a second as well. I know some fans of Italian football, and they said that when he was at Sassuolo, the top teams were afraid to go there because they would be dominated. The passing and the possession, one of the best possessive sides in Serie A, maybe even the best, and teams wouldn't enjoy kind of going there. So, yeah, very, very attacking, very possession-based, and actually looks like an evolution on Potter kind of going forward. So that's just
steady. I mean, a couple of things. Like, first of all, like when Brighton appoint a manager, they're not appointing a manager without having done their homework, right?
Exactly.
They would probably have had they would have been prepared for this, right? Because they, like us, would have known that Potter's going to be sought after, and it's only be a matter of time. Either England came knocking or somebody else. I was quite surprised Chelsea moved for him, but fair enough. So you know that when they go and get a manager, it's going to be an option they've researched and it'll be right for them, perfect fit, right? No doubt. Yeah. So you're right to be excited on that score in that he's going to be a good option. Whether his brand of football translates directly to immediate FPL returns, I think you'll probably jump into several guns. But yeah, we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see. I think the what you described there, we're getting as many, fullbacks up high, getting as many players in the opponent's half. Yeah, Cooper tries that, and it hasn't really worked for us. So, let's see how he implements his plan on a Premier League stage, which is the toughest stage in the world of football, isn't it? So
what's going to be very interesting is the formation. So as I said, he mostly. I think it might even be my next screen. No, it's not. Hang on, let me find the screen. This one. So this is how Sassuolo set up. So it's either a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. That's kind of just typically what he uses. He's been quoted saying, "I never start with a formation. I don't have a favourite system that I like or don't like. I put players in their best positions, keeping the same principles." So that's what he said.
That's not Potter, is it?
No, exactly.
he moves players around as he to fit his tactical systems, right? So,
but what is going to be very interesting about that is Brighton's squad is very much set up for 3 at the back and wing backs because we don't really have fullbacks. I mean, we've got Estupinian and Lamptey. I mean, if he goes with those two and like Webster and Dunk, I mean, talk about being open. We're going to get absolutely kind of cleaved apart. So I think he might have to start with 5 at the back and kind of work from that, because that just seems to be how our team is set up. But it will be interesting to know if he sees something in those two. Because if he doesn't go that, I mean, he could use Veltman at right back potentially. But March, I think will play further up the pitch. It's interesting.
Let's cut to the chase, because Delia says this. So are we keeping Brighton assets? You've got Gross and a Stupinen. You're keeping Gross, I take it, because you're going to wait and see what role he plays. Trossard's got to be the joker, though. He's got to be the one, isn't he, Trossard? Because I always look at Trossard and think there's a better FPL asset in there than we've even seen to this point. Like, he has got the potential, I think, to jump to that 8-9 million bracket with his output, and he's not quite done it with Potter, but this could be the guy to unlock that. Do you acknowledge that? Do you see that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think March is interesting as well if he gets that kind of right wing spot nailed down. But Trossard is the best player in our team, and I think Zerbi's going to know that. I think Gross is really interesting though, because Zerbi was a number 10 back in his playing days, and he never felt he was in a side that could unlock his potential because no one played with a number 10, so he was kind of like cast under. If you look at the way Sassuolo's set up, that number 10, that AM, is so key to unlocking everything, and he's got the perfect one in Gross because he's fantastic at doing that. So I think if you've got Trossard or Gross, you keep them absolutely 100%. I think if you've got Dunk, Webster, Veltman, you probably bin them off based on kind of what I'm showing.
Sanchez. I mean, like Sanchez has been a sound pick at 4-5, but do you think he'll have more to do, right? He's going to have more to do.
He'll have more to do. I think he's going to start doing a lot better on the bonus because he's going to be used in the build-up play a lot more, the short play. Basically, from what I've read and from what I've seen of Sassuolo's tactics, is very much kick the ball around as much as possible around that back line, invite the press, invite players to come into you, and then exploit the space quickly and kind of effectively. Now, Liverpool was the ultimate test in the first game because they are the best pressers in the world. When, you know, they didn't show it in the first couple of games, but I think that game has just got so many goals all over it because Brighton are going to be trying to implement this new quick passing style, and Liverpool are going to be pressing, and there will be space for Brighton to exploit. But I think it's going to be two completely different systems going against each other. So yeah, I think
but he's only had 2 weeks, and he's had some of his players away, so it's not going to be immediate. So he's going to take time to get his team playing how he wants to play. So
he will, but it's not a complete overhaul of tactics because there's a lot of similarities between this kind of system and what Potter's been building, and we've got the players that can do it. The players in our team are clever, technical players on the ball. That's what Potter's been building. So I don't think it's going to be a huge, fundamental change. The training videos I've seen him are really interesting because he's encouraging this quick play. He's really sort of anal beads, looking at the way players turn on the ball and which feet they take the ball on and stuff. Like it's all very technical, very intricate. So yeah, going to be really interesting.
But what about the fixtures, because Brighton's fixtures aren't great?
The fixtures, Mark, are absolutely awful. We can see the ticker here. This is for the next it's about 8-9 weeks.
And that game week 12 tough encounter stands out for me, right?
Yeah. If only Well, you're not even coming to the match anymore.
No, I'm going to see Pavement in Glasgow instead. So sorry.
Typical Mark. This is. It's the day before my hernia surgery. Now I'm still going.
Okay. Well, you're a soldier, aren't you? But I'm seeing Pavement. Sorry.
Our fixtures are Liverpool, Spurs, Brentford, Forest, City. So yeah, I mean Liverpool. I think that we'll get a goal or at least a couple of goals in that. Spurs is going to be really tough. I think just because of how kind of organised and compact and how Conte's got them set up. But Brentford, Forest, I think we can score in those. Then it's City, Chelsea. I mean, I wouldn't be buying our players for sure, but I think
well, that's what I was getting at. Would you be buying? I mean, I guess it's a keep then, is it? Keep and wait and see how it unfolds.
It's a keep, yeah. I think if you've got Gross and you've got Trossard, there's no reason to be jumping off them. Just one thing before I move off this, and I will move off this in a second, is I just want to show you this. This is teams where possession play improved most year on year. This is from The Athletic. So Brighton in 1920, when Potter came in, were the second most improved in terms of possession. And look at that, Sassuolo first in terms of possession. So at the moment, Brighton are 8th in the league. We average about 50% of possession in the game, which is good for us. But if you look at this chart, you can see here we're expecting that to increase quite a lot under De Zerbi. I mean, in his season at Sassuolo, in terms of completed passes, no team in Serie A had more complete passes. They'd Juventus, Napoli, Inter, and it's because of this quick short play passing. So expect Brighton's possession to improve. Expect us to concede more goals, but I'm also expecting us to score more. That's the final.
Okay. Can I just say I expect this level of analysis when Sam Allardyce takes over from Cooper in a few weeks' time.
And you'll get it. Then you'll get it. Okay, I'll talk about all of his free kick seminars and corners and everything. I can't wait for Sam Allardyce to take over at Forest.
I'm joking. I hope. God, honestly, that'll be the end of me. I think if that happened. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. I haven't been running the chat. I hope I didn't bore everyone too much.
They've been very tolerant of that section. Yeah, quite frankly, I'm quite surprised. So, let's move on though, shall we? No, I think it's interesting. And again, it's exciting. It's another ingredient. It's another change. Along with Potter at Chelsea, and will that unlock Sterling? What will it do to James, etc.? We've got a new manager at Brighton that could enhance Brighton assets, and I'm all for it. Let's bring it on. Let's start seeing Trossard banging goals. Let's start seeing Gross being an even better player than he is. Let's start seeing the fullbacks be a factor for Brighton. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Yep, I've got one more thing to say about the
Oh,
Zerbi.
of course you have.
And
Yeah, go on.
not about because I mentioned that he was a nice guy as well. So firstly, he was one of the few Italian voices who spoke up against the Super League. Was it last year or the year before?
Yep.
And he was about to play Milan, and he basically condemned Milan and said, they were kind of snakes and whatever, and then beat them with Sassuolo. So I enjoyed that. He refused to leave the Ukraine when the war started until all of his international players, partners, and children were evacuated. So he was the last player international player there to leave. And he also was offered the job at Bologna, and they had a manager already in place who was battling leukemia at the time, and he refused the job unless he resigned. Bologna sacked him, and he refused the job.
Wow.
So there you go.
Blimey.
There you go.
Well, fair play.
Three other reasons to respect Roberto.
Yeah, it is nice when you respect your manager as a person, isn't it? And that's why I love Cooper so much as well. So I feel it. I feel the love from you for your new manager, and I hope he delivers for you.
Me too.
I really do.
I'm excited.
But he looks nothing like you, as
does look nothing like me. No. I feel like I could screw my face up into it.
That's going to get cut as well, isn't it?
Probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned anal beads twice, so it can't get any worse. Right, is this the official Brighton podcast? It should be. That is it. I'm done.
Steve, let's move on for
I'm
Steve's
done.
sake, shall we?
I'm done now. Let's look at some data then. Let's look at team data attack over the season. We've got City in first. What a surprise. XG, non-penalty per 90 of 2.03. I mean, is that the highest you've ever seen it?
Could be. I don't know. I'll need to look back on last season, but and what was getting me as well, big chance per 90. Look at the gap there to the rest of the field. The gap from Liverpool is not that big, but the gap on big chance per 90, 4.1 compared to 2.6. Liverpool, Arsenal 2.8. 4 big chances a match when you've got Haaland in your team is a concern for the opponent, isn't it? And for us, there's a lot of talk about, are we going off Haaland as perma captain? Well, with that kind of rate of big chance creation, De Bruyne and Haaland should continue to deliver, right? You'd have to expect that. And I don't know if that's going to dip. I think they can maintain this kind of level. And there's a lot of people saying the title race is already over. It's premature to say that, but my word, they've started well, and the numbers are very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you'd almost expect them to get better as well as the season goes on. I mean, we talked a lot at the start of the season about having to learn how to use Haaland to his full potential, and even the first 4 or 5 weeks, you had Foden getting subbed early because he wasn't passing to him and all that. I mean, they've clearly learned how to play with him, but they've only played 7 or 8 games in the Premier League. You've got to think that's going to click even more and get even better. So they're just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Liverpool in second is interesting, 1.94. Arsenal in third and Spurs in fourth. I mean, that could very well be the top 4 this season based on kind of what we've seen so far. But I mean, Liverpool have struggled a bit, but they're not really struggling to create chances. And you've got to think now with Thiago back, they're going to start scoring some more goals.
Yeah. You expect them to find another gear, don't you? And that's why it's interesting at the moment that with the wildcards having been played in this week and last, people have moved away from the Liverpool assets with game week, with the fixtures and with the form. So, yeah, we're looking at Salah later on, I think, and it is interesting to look at where Liverpool were this time last season. There's not a massive difference in terms of. I think when Salah, after 6 matches, after 540 minutes this season, Liverpool scored 15 goals. And after 540 minutes for Salah last season, they'd scored 15 goals as well. And the season before that, 15 goals. So in terms of Salah's presence in that team, his output should be better than it is, really. It has been for the last 2 seasons. So we'll look at Salah later on. He definitely has struggled. I think it's because we're going off Liverpool, not because necessarily that we think their form's going to continue. It's because Trent and Salah as FPL assets have kind of lagged behind City so much, and there are options elsewhere now that we've been driven to kind of reconsider it, especially with like Son and Kane being factors again, and Arsenal kicking on as well. So it's not just City and Liverpool dominating now. Arsenal are playing their part, and Spurs are kind of maintaining the levels to some extent we saw last season. So although City are well out in front, the chasing pack is a little bit closer, isn't it, between Liverpool, Arsenal and Spurs in terms of our feelings towards their fantasy assets.
Yeah.
It's levelled out.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that Liverpool-Bournemouth 9-0 was this season. That feels like bloody
Yeah, I
ages
know.
ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder how much. Yeah, I wonder how much that's kind of inflated things. I mean, Leeds in fifth is again different to how we kind of predicted that to go under Marsh. We thought they'd be better defensively, but kind of sacrifice of their attacking play. But they'll be happy with that. I mean, there's quite a drop off as well from fifth in Leeds down to Newcastle in sixth, 1.62 to 1.46 non-penalty per 90. But talk about drop off. I mean, look at Bournemouth, 0.47 right down the bottom. Now, there's a lot of talk about a certain Dominic Solanke
I know.
this season.
I know.
It's very hard to score when you don't get many, when you're getting basically a chance every other game or an XG every other game. What do you make of Solanke?
Well, yeah, when we look at some data with him, I think we've got a table on that later, but you've got to take this table in because look where Bournemouth are. And yes, okay, they've not have the easiest of starts necessarily, but I don't expect Bournemouth to be a strong attacking side and that to improve markedly at all. The fixtures are swinging their way. They're top of the ticker, right? So that means that this is probably the period of the season where we'd expect Solanke to be a factor if he's ever going to be a factor. Unless, obviously, they're fighting relegation at the end and then sometimes form goes out the window, fixtures goes out the window and teams fighting for their lives can get results out of nothing. But this period, if it goes Brentford, Leicester, both home games, Fulham away, Southampton at home. So 3 of the next 4 are at home against teams that, they'll be looking at that and thinking we need to get points against these teams. Brentford at home, Leicester at home and Southampton at home. And even Fulham away, they think they can probably get something there. So there's no question that Bournemouth will be looking at this next set of fixtures and thinking this is a crucial period for us. If we are going to survive this season, we need to come out of this run with some points, with probably 9 to 10 points between now and game week 16. And that's what we care about because after 16 we can change our teams. Would I go Solanke? Last season, in this scenario, I think I'll be all over Solanke like a bad suit.
Yeah.
This season, when we've got Mitrovic, Tony, Isak, and you've got Haaland, who automatically almost fills one spot up front, I think it's difficult to find a place for Solanke, even with these fixtures. Given the data on that previous screen, we saw Bournemouth are so far adrift of every other team in terms of their attacking output so far. And although these fixtures are the best run of fixtures they've got, they are a team that aren't going to throw caution to the wind and attack these teams. They're going to be pragmatic in their approach, even to these fixtures, I would have thought. So I don't see Solanke coming out of this run between 9 and 16 with more than 3 or 4 goals at most. And I would back Tony, Mitrovic and Isak, depending on when he's returned, to match or better that. So for me, Solanke's a no, but last season, it would have been a yes because the options weren't there, were they?
Yeah, I mean, the argument I'm seeing from quite a few, and Slippers included, is that, he's going 5 in midfield, for example, and wants a player for game week 12 when City and Arsenal have got the game and needs that bench to be decent, and Bournemouth have got Southampton at home in that fixture. So, for example, Zaha is someone who's really popular. Palace are second on the fixture ticker. Well, maybe you go for Zaha over one of the strikers you've mentioned, Tony, Isak, and then you have Solanke in as that kind of enabler type. I mean, that means that you're spending quite a lot of money on a bench option most weeks. It also means that you might dodge a couple of Solanke's goals as well if you think he's going to score over this period. And I think the forward options that you've talked about are all better. I mean, I want to, at the moment, historically, it's the forwards that do the best in FPL. And when we've got options to choose, I don't know why we wouldn't make sure we've got the best 3 options that we can get. And when I've got Kane, Mitrovic, and Haaland, and why would I break that up for Solanke?
You're not going to sell Mitrovic, and I've got Tony, Haaland, and Mitrovic, and so Solanke doesn't better any of those for me. I guess it's a money thing, right? If he enables you to get a stronger midfield option and an upgrade there, but for me, Tony and Mitrovic are the two that look strongest to supplement either Kane or Haaland. And obviously, if you're going both Kane and Haaland, you've only got one slot. It's got to be Mitrovic, given the run he's got. Mitrovic might be carrying an injury, right? We saw that he's hobbling. There's some footage of him hobbling after the game. But he's made of steel.
He's playing Newcastle next. He's no way he's missing that.
Playing. He's playing in that game. He only needs his head anyway. It doesn't matter if his feet don't work. So I see. I think it's harsh on Solanke because I think in these circumstances, with those fixtures, he is a worthwhile punt. But this season, with the options we've got, I think it's a struggle to justify moving to him, unless you're really seeking out a differential. But I don't think he's going to be explosive. Like I think he will deliver okay over this period, but he's not going to get a couple of hat tricks, is he? Because Bournemouth aren't that team. They're not going to throw caution to the wind over this period. The other thing is Gary O'Neill is temporary boss. We don't even know who the manager is yet. So a manager could come in and change everything. The system could change. Kiefer Moore is the focal point of that attack, if anything. So Solanke could even end up playing behind him in a different kind of role. So there's a lot of things up in the air at Bournemouth at the moment. So you're buying into a team that's uncertain and are bottom of the attacking data.
Yeah.
Yes, they've got good fixtures, but with the options we've got elsewhere, no, it's a no for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, is that? I mean, you know, I would never tell anyone to not buy or buy someone, and I think it is really interesting because the fact Bournemouth are top of the fixture ticker with 3 home games in the next 4 is quite intriguing. It's just you look at the attacking data, and you know if they're only going to get an XG every other game, you've really got to doubt how many goals they're going to score. Even against some of the worst sides. But yeah, we'll see. If you want to go for him and you can use that money elsewhere and you can grab a Zaha or a James or upgrade, 4 million defenders to Trippier or whatever.
Yeah, it's what you can do with the money. Yeah. As I've said before in the argument with Salah and Son, it's never about just those 2 players. It's about what does that extra 0.5, 0.9, 1 million, whatever that extra is, what does that get you? That has to come into the argument as well. But if it's a straight, do I prefer Mitrovic, Tony...
Yep.
To Solanke over this one? Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Defence. Let's take a look at some of these. City top again by quite a margin. Arsenal next in second. West Ham, interestingly, in third. The stats indicate they were pretty unlucky to lose that game against Everton. They lost 1-0. They had a better XG. But Moyes he's in a bit of trouble, isn't he? Do you reckon he can come out of this?
I don't know what's going on really. I don't know what has broken the formula that he had. They look like such a well balanced team with a good first 11 that could be a top 6 first 11. Right, that's what I thought they would become. I thought they'd kick on further this season, and I think obviously the European campaign is going to interrupt their progress because it is arduous, and they've brought in new players that haven't really settled. Maybe they've done more harm than good bringing in new faces, as Forest have found to their cost as well. It isn't always a positive.
You made some signings, have you? I didn't realise.
Yeah, I made a few. I think West Ham have got quality that will eventually come to the fore and they'll break out of this. It is interesting that defensively they've kicked on. I haven't seen any changes tactically that would lead them to that. I can only think maybe it's the fixtures they've had that have promoted their defensive data and it will normalise over time, but maybe not. Maybe West Ham are now a top 6 side defensively, and we need to be looking at their players. Emerson's obviously if he starts at wing back, if they play a back 3, then he's a great option. But if they chop and change, which I expect them to do, then there's not really a nailed on figure that you would go for in that West Ham defence. Not a go to option, is there? So,
no, I mean
Creswell when they're scoring goals, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got Emerson. I think he's decent if they do go back to a back 3 with wing backs. I think he's he's an absolute standout. But obviously didn't play there in the last game, and Creswell was back, and it was a bit annoying. Some of the teams I want to mention on this list, though, I mean, you would expect Leicester, having conceded 22 goals, which is the most in the league, to be bottom. They're not. It's Palace, who are still bottom, which is surprising for a lot of different reasons. I think they're obviously now second on the ticker, and the defence we don't really consider because they're not really the attacking options. There's no Van Aanholt these days or exciting attacking options, but it is interesting that they're so low down because you associate a Vieira side with being pretty structured.
Yeah, but they've had tough fixtures, haven't they? And they had the 10 men at Anfield as well, which skewed the numbers a bit. So I think, like West Ham at the top, I'd expect that to normalise out and they'll make their way up to mid-table soon. I would have thought, because I don't think anything's changed tactically there. And actually, people are looking at Gaeta and players like that, aren't they, for this run? And I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, the goalkeeper will always get save points, even if they are questionable defensively. I still think there's a problem on set plays, though. I still think not Leicester proportions, but they're still vulnerable there. So I'm personally not looking at the Crystal Palace defence, but I don't think it's the worst defence in the league. That data says it is, but it's not. It's gonna level out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester are an interesting one because I thought Leicester actually played really well in the first 40 minutes against Spurs. I thought they were well in the game, they looked sharp, but they just crumbled, don't they? They're just a team now where as soon as things start going against them, they look like they could concede absolute buckets. And I don't know if you saw the Sidemen charity match with Cal the Dragon.
I did. The goalkeeping there.
Very much like Danny Ward in the sense that he couldn't save anything. I mean, they have to make a change, I think, really, at a goalkeeper. Well, they can't. It's going to be Everson in soon, surely.
Surely against Forest, he's going to make that change. I mean, normally when, like Travers for Bournemouth, when they lost 9-0 at Anfield, Travers made way and Nico came in. And I think that surely that'll happen for Leicester. He can't justify picking Ward any longer, can he? Given that they've conceded 5 and then 6, and Forest is a crucial game where he's potentially his job's on the line.
Both jobs.
You'd expect Everson. Yeah. Don't want to say that, but yeah, possibly. I think Rodgers is more in danger, but yeah, it's going to be a crazy game on Monday because you look at those two defences and they're both very similar. Like as soon as Forest have scored first in a lot of games this season, but as soon as we concede one, we crumble, right? Yeah. So the first goal on Monday night is going to be really, really crucial. And yeah, Leicester, you pick players against them at the moment. We talk about picking Maddison, but you pick players, attacking players against them for sure, don't you?
Yep. Well, yeah, you have to. There are two that come. I mean, I still think attacking wise, they're not that high up in the list, but I think Maddison is the standout. Yeah. There's probably not any other attackers I go for, but I still am backing them to score some goals, no matter who's in charge. But yeah, defensively, it's completely different. Do you think there's a spirit issue? Do you think that the problems off the pitch are showing on the pitch? Do you think like the discontent and the uncertainty of Rodgers' future and the players that wanted to leave and some left and some didn't, do you think that is what the problem is? I mean, or do you think it's just lack of talent? It's really tough. I mean, I definitely don't think it's lack of talent. I think they've got a squad that should be challenging for top 6 to 8. I think they managed to keep hold of Tielemans. Okay, Fofana went, but with Maddison, with Vardy, with Daka. They've got a good team. Justin, I really rate. I mean, losing Schmeichel was absolutely huge, and the fact they didn't bring in a proper replacement for him was an issue. But I expected them to do okay this season, and I guess they're just a team where when things start going a bit badly, they don't really know how to deal with it. And
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, Cooper has said for Forest, like the reason why when we concede the first goal we crumble is we don't yet have that team spirit that we had last season because it's all new players. Leicester should still have that team spirit because they haven't had that much change. They've lost some key men, but the players that are there know each other and should be fighting for each other, but they're not. So something's wrong. Yeah, something's wrong. Where's that spirit gone? It shouldn't be lost. Rodgers should still have that, but he hasn't, and so something inherently is wrong there, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well. I mean, remember when Ranieri was there, won the league, and then the season after they just completely fell apart as well, and they didn't seem to have that same desire to press and to attack and to do all the things that did so well, and you couldn't really understand where that had gone. But if the hunger isn't there and they are willing these moves and wanting to move on, and the investment isn't coming, then I guess that can play on the mind. But it is a strange one. Yep. Just one other thing I want to mention here is Bournemouth in 11th. Even though they conceded 9 goals to Liverpool, they're not rock bottom. Their defensive numbers don't indicate they're the whipping boys. They're ahead of Chelsea, United. Not ahead of United. They're ahead of like Chelsea, Everton, for example, who have been okay defensive. Villa, who Gerrard has set Villa up like since he's been there to be quite a good defensive side. But Bournemouth are ahead of all those as well. Do you think we're wrong to be targeting Bournemouth as a whipping boy, or
no?
Is this bubble going to burst?
I think they're going to concede goals in games, but they're not going to get routed. They're not a Leicester or Forest. They're not going to collapse in games. So I think that, it links back to what we said about Solanke. They're going to be pragmatic in their approach. That means they're not going to take risks. Even with the fixtures they got, they're going to go into this run, going, we only need to win 1-0. Performance doesn't matter. We don't need to score 4 or 5 goals. We need to win 1-0. That will probably be their approach. It's hard for me to speculate because O'Neill, I don't know Gary O'Neill as a manager. I did know I did know that the previous managers, I did know that, you had more data to go on with them and you knew exactly how they were going to set up, how they were going to approach games. Parker was a defensively minded manager. So with O'Neill, maybe there's going to be a bit more about them and we'll see this data change, but it's not even sure that O'Neill's permanent yet. So we'll have to see.
Yep. Excellent. Keepers. Let's have a look at some player data. Keepers is a really interesting one at the moment because Pope is kind of the standout on this list. Points per 90, highest. Expected goal prevented. I think he's either the first or second highest. He's third. Sorry, Pickford is the best, and then Alisson, and then Pope. But he's doing all the things. He's made like the most saves. He's made the most recoveries. I think he's doing everything. But then a lot of people have got Trippier. So do you really want that double up? I mean, we saw it against Bournemouth. I mean, that is like a nailed-on clean sheet, right, against Bournemouth, and they still managed to concede. And that's the kind of danger when you go for this kind of double up. If you don't go for Pope, I find it really hard to know who to go for. There's no keepers that I love at the moment. What about you?
No, I feel the same. I mean, like, as I said, Gator's getting some traffic. I've got Raya, and to be honest, because there's no standout, I'm just going to probably settle on that because I've got other transfers I want to make. A few weeks back, I was going to move to Henderson, but with Forest capitulation, that's a no-go at the moment. I still think Henderson could emerge as the best 4-5, but at the moment, Raya's as good as anybody, isn't he? 4-5, Brentford, they're going to concede goals, but also he's going to make saves. He's got a good amount of saves on this chart. And he's in the, in terms of BPS per 90, he's what, second? Yeah, he's second to Pope. So Raya's a good option for me. And you're right, because of Trippier, I've got Trippier, and I don't want to double up on Newcastle because I don't yet trust them as an elite defence by any means. They're a much improved team under Howe. We saw it last season. But Pope didn't have a good international break, and you've got to think with goalkeepers mentally, how's that going to affect him? You made that error in the Germany game, and I don't know. I'm not spending 5.2 on Pope when I've got Trippier now. No way.
It's really interesting with Pope, isn't it? Because he didn't look like a international goalkeeper in those games, but then you look at these stats and you think he has been, well, arguably the best goalkeeper in the league so far. But I think Pickford, with those performances, Pickford's just nailed his spot now for the World Cup under Southgate. Yeah. So yeah, fair play to him. I mean, I've got Henderson. He's not great. You're conceding loads of goals, but I kind of don't really care. There's no obvious switch that I'd make.
No, exactly. Yeah,
I think I probably would go for Raya if I had the choice, but yeah, there's not much in it. Defence. Stupinian right at the top, 0.46 XGI non-penalty per 90 is what this is sorted by. And then it's kind of your main guys, Perisic, Trent, and Reece James. I still can't believe Cancelo is so low down. 43rd in the league, 0.11 XGI non-penalty per 90. He's having
the goal he scored was the worldie, right? That's not going to add to his XG too much, was it? Right. So yeah, very little has changed there.
I mean, this was a guy who was having by far the most shots per 90 of all defenders last season. Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think on the Trent situation?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why people are selling him. I mean, it's three difficult. Well, Brighton, I think will score in that, but then it's Arsenal, and then it's City. Is it that next three? So
yeah, City in 11. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to think clean sheets are going to be hard to come by. People aren't losing a lot of value. In him, he's already dropped in price a little bit. I can completely see why people are doing it. I don't know. I think you can make a case either way. I think, people were talking about selling him a few weeks ago and were absolutely ridiculed for it. And now I think you can definitely make the case because you've got Reece James, you've got Trippier, you've got Cancelo. These are three defenders I'd rather have than Trent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I've got Trent and I haven't got a City defender. And so it could be an easy move for me. But I think, like I said at the top of the show, I've got to look for differentials, and so me holding Trent is probably a good idea rather than moving. What's the point in moving my team closer to the template and going Cancelo? I might as well keep Trent, who, let's face it, for the last 3 or 4 seasons has been an elite FPL asset, and you look at this data and he's still top 10 for what, 4 of the 5 variables that we're showing here, apart from points per 90, he's top 10. So, you know, I'm going to hold. I'm not going to move to Cancelo. I mean, it's probably Perisic if I was going to get rid of one of my defenders that would move. But Perisic is second in this as well. And I look at him and think, you know, I've got to have players like this, players who can be differentials and be fairly explosive. And I look at Perisic and Trent and think, I don't want to be losing them. I want to be holding them and hoping they come in for me. So I think that's all right. I'm happy holding on to Trent for a while. But you're right, the fixtures are against him. But I think if I was going to go a City defender now, I'd probably go a cheaper one and try and do something with the money, even though, you know, Cancelo is royalty. He's been fantastic this season. Yes, the XG data might not show any huge encouragement, but his performances have been outstanding, and he's been really high in the bonus, hasn't he? He's always been, you know, he got bonus in a game where he had no attacking input whatsoever. And yes, they kept a clean sheet. It was a 3-0, I think, and he still came out with bonus points because of his all-round performances. So the fact he's more involved in the play in a kind of more central role, and he's not drifting out wide as much, hasn't hurt his bonus production. It might have hurt his XG, but he's still got that goal already, and he's got 1 assist. So, you know, I'm not going to move to him, but I don't think anyone's selling Cancelo now, are they?
No. I mean, I've got Diaz. And I'm looking at ways of moving up to Cancelo potentially, but it's not hugely on my main priority list, but it's something I would look to do. Just quickly on Trent. I mean, the main thing I look at when I see this chart is the open play crosses per 90 of 7.1, which is way higher than anyone else. I mean, the next highest is SuperChats, 6.7, but obviously he's not really a factor. I mean, there's no one else that comes anywhere close. I think Perisic is next with 4.55. Oh, your boy there actually, Renan Lodi with 5.44. But you know, they've got Nunez in the side now who they want to get the ball to.
Yeah.
And you've got to think, you know, if Trent's putting in this many crosses, that Nunez is going to get chances from them. So
yeah, I'm absolutely looking at Trent and thinking I'm not going to count on clean sheets, but attacking returns are definitely on the cards. You know, and people are considering, well, should I go back to Salah? Well, if we think Salah's a good bet and Salah's going to score goals, Trent's going to be in the points as well. You know, Liverpool aren't going to score goals and Trent's going to blank. He's going to get assists in games. You know, he hasn't been hugely profitable so far, but he's definitely showing the data that would suggest that he's going to come good.
Yep.
It's just the clean sheets. It's just the fragility. But that could improve as well. I mean, you expect Klopp to be working on that. Given the fixtures toughen up, we'll see. But I'm not selling, that's for sure.
A few surprising things here. I mean, Perisic not being in the top 10 for shots per 90. We were all expecting him to come in and just be taking shots as much as he could, but he's clearly being more restrained in that. He is crossing a lot, so he's, you know, kind of third on the list for crosses per 90, but not really taking too many shots. I mean, does that surprise you? Is he be using it? I mean, he was playing like left forward for Croatia in their last game, but obviously still very attacking for Spurs, but not shooting as much as we maybe thought.
Yeah, I'd hope to see a bit more from him. And there's been some talk about he's been the factor that has held Son back as well. I'm not sure about that, but I think he's still finding his role in that team, right? And Session's come on a lot as well under Conte, so his start is not necessarily guaranteed. But what was interesting, of course, is that Perisic moved to the right hand side, right? And now when you consider that he can play either right or left wing back, you've got to think that his start is more assured. And for me, that's great news. You know, if you're holding Perisic, there's a good chance now he's going to start most games. So I think, you know, the landscape has changed a bit on him. He's not the risk he was if he's going to have that option to start him on the right-hand side as well. So, you know, he's definitely a hold for me as well. And if you haven't got Perisic, you're not going to be worried because of the fixtures, but there will be periods coming up soon. Certainly the Everton game in Gameweek 11, if you don't have him, if he's on the pitch, then you think that he could be a differential.
And the final player I want to mention is there's one number here which is so far above everyone else that it would be rude not to talk about it. And it was the same last season before his injury, but it is Ben Chilwell with a points per 90 of 15.97. There's been quite a few people asking about Cucurella and Chilwell and who's going to play under Potter and all that. I think Chilwell's at risk because we know Potter loves Cucurella, but I think Potter loves Cucurella at centre-back. A left-sided centre-back. So I think we might start seeing more from Chilwell coming forward. And when he plays, he delivers. It's just it would take quite a ballsy FPL manager to bring him in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress by Chelsea, isn't it? What Potter's going to do. There's no question that Reece James is the go-to. Are you going to double up on Chelsea? Not at the moment, but we have to see what happens with Chilwell and Cucurella, because there's potential. There's potential there. And that would signal a return of big at the back, maybe. But at the moment, I think it's fair to say people are trimming their defensive spend down to playing a 3-4-3 and flushing money out. They're going two budgets, aren't they? They're going Emerson and Williams, or Patterson, not Patterson now because of the injury, but they're flushing money out, that's for sure. So right now, the talk of going another Chelsea wing-back is off the menu, but could come back if we see a pattern to Potter's selection.
He played 18 minutes and got a goal and assist against West Ham.
Yeah.
Couldn't really do much more to be considered.
But he wasn't fit, was he? He wasn't fit. And that's the problem with Chilwell. His fitness isn't there, and Potter doesn't have to risk it. So, that's what we're waiting on.
Yep, for sure. Let's move over to midfielders. Then we've got De Bruyne, top of the pile. Actually, non-penalty per 90 of 0.81. Then Sinistera in second, someone that I keep going on about, but I'm probably never going to own. Scored 2 goals for Colombia off the bench as well. Had a bit more time. He's come back from injury, so you've got to think he's going to be kind of straight back in the side. And then Salah in third at 0.68. I mean, 3 quite big players to talk about there for kind of different reasons. De Bruyne, 0.81 is ridiculously high for him. A lot of people have got him now because they've sold Salah for him. You've got him.
Yeah,
happy with that?
Yeah, I mean, he's a hold. Yeah, I'm not in the going back to Salah camp myself. I think that with Haaland as captain, going back to Salah, you would have to have confidence enough where you were going to look to Salah as a captaincy option. And right now, I think it's difficult to take it off Haaland. I might, going De Bruyne as your captain. The 2 players, De Bruyne and Haaland, are so linked intrinsically because one is supplying the other. And you've got to think, if Haaland gets a couple of goals in a game, De Bruyne's not going to blank. He should come out of that with something as well. So if you're going to look for an alternative captain to Haaland at the moment, it wouldn't be Salah for me. It probably would be De Bruyne. And even when we look ahead, Gameweek 11, you're probably looking at a Spurs player if you really want to come off Haaland as captain. So because Salah's not really in the captaincy conversation at the moment for me, I mean, I'm not. People are saying, he's a captain watching against Brighton. Of course he is. He's always going to be some player you can consider. But for me, I haven't seen enough from him or Liverpool. And it is a thing. There's no question that tactically his role has changed for me to some extent. And people have seen it and it's there, right? Yeah, I mean, this is the data we've looked at in previous weeks as well. Last season was such a high for him in every area that obviously he has dipped and declined. The shot per 90 is the biggest drop. 2.83 shots per 90 is the lowest it's been for the 5 seasons. Right? It's considerably lower than the 4.53 last season. So that, just looking at that, some example, you look at the maps below which plot his shots and his shots on target. The first one is this season, the next one is last season, and the one before that is the season before that, obviously. And you can see the number of shots have decreased, the number of shots on target have decreased, the location of the shots isn't as concentrated in central areas. So, there's data to support the fact that something has changed in the way Salah is either being instructed or Salah is playing. I saw earlier that he's holding a wider role so that Trent can come inside, and then we saw Trent's crossing data, how often he's crossing from open play. That's presumably to supply Núñez, right? And so at the moment, until I see a big shift in that and I see the data start to creep up, I'm not confident enough to put the armband on him over Haaland. But I'm not writing him off by any means. I think he will factor in our seasons again, for sure.
It's interesting that his touches in the box per 90 isn't dramatically different.
No.
Which is when you look at these charts, you can see he is still getting the shots off in the right place, which is in the box, right? There's just less of them. But touch in the box of 9.33 last year, which was his best year, was 10.07. So you're talking, less than one touch of the match. different. 9.12 in 2021, which is less than what it is now. So he is still getting. Do you think it's a case of he's still getting the ball in the right areas, but just choosing not to shoot and just looking to lay it off, and that's why his chance created is up?
Yeah, his chances created are higher than they've ever been. They're double last season and more than double previous season. So something's happened there. Surely, by now we would have seen that start to creep back, but it hasn't, right? So it's a pattern now. It's almost a trend. Okay, it's 6 weeks. Maybe that's a small sample. But what we're seeing and what we're seeing in the data and what we're seeing in the matches is he is taking up wide rolls and more often than not laying the ball off to Trent or trying to find someone in the middle, either Nunes or Diaz, or Firmino, right? So he is giving up opportunities to others more often than he has done in the past, and he's not getting in the positions where he feels he can take shots as often. Now, that might change at a flick of a switch, and then suddenly we have to consider him again. But sitting here now, I don't think, with Haaland as a factor as captain, I don't think he's a must-have anymore. Not at the moment.
If I had him this week, I'd captain him.
Would you?
Against us? Yeah, for sure. I think Haaland against United. It's not the. I mean, United have been good, and I think the way City play almost plays into United's hands a little bit in this kind of game. I can't see City winning that game by a huge amount. And normally, I hate United so much. Normally, I say how bad they are and everything, but I don't know. It should be an interesting game. I think there's not going to be many weeks in which we get a chance to go against someone a bit different. And when you've got Salah as a bit of a differential. I think if you've held on to him for this long, you go for it.
I think it's similar to last week with Kane, isn't it? It's like, how often are we going to have a viable alternative to Haaland? And I guess if you've got Salah, he does present that. But I guess we're reading a lot into this Brighton managerial change. And now, Brighton normally, if that was Potter taking Brighton there, you would think that Liverpool are going to be somewhat restricted under the new manager. Maybe not, but I don't know. Liverpool's attacking data hasn't been awful. On the eye, they haven't been as good. Well, that's the perception we've had. But the data suggests they are still, in the top 2 or 3 attacks in the league. And I expect that. And Thiago's back, and so that could really make a difference because he's incisive of his passing. He spots passes others don't, and that could get Salah in behind. That's what we've not seen enough of. Salah getting in behind. He too often he's receiving the ball too wide or too deep. That, like I say, it could change with a flick of a switch. It is a gamble, I think, to go Salah over Haaland, but if you've got Salah, it's definitely a viable option. Yeah.
Yep. Let's come back to Sinistera then, at the other end of the price spectrum, just 6.5. I've been really impressed with what I've seen of him. He has had his minutes managed quite a lot. I think the most minutes he's played in the league has been 60 minutes in the last game. Obviously been kind of managed back to full fitness. Has got 2 goals in 2 starts. 0.7 on the XGI non-penalty per 90. Leeds with decent-ish fixtures. They have got the game in 12. I'm looking at kind of Martinelli, for example, and thinking if I had him and I had no other moves to make, would I consider making that move over to Sinistera? I think I probably would.
Would you?
I think so.
I guess, with Gameweek 12 in mind. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Looking at the ticker, for example, you've got Leeds over the next 6. Villa, Palace, Arsenal. Okay, they're not great. But then Leicester, Fulham in 12 and 13. And then on to Liverpool. Arsenal over that period have Spurs, Liverpool, a blank. So, you keep Sinistera. Remember, you get Sinistera right up until game week 14. And then Leeds play Liverpool and Arsenal go into the Forest. But then you've got money tied up in Martinelli, for example. On a wild card, though, I think I probably would go for Sinistera over Martinelli.
For me, it's such a small sample that I don't want to buy into it yet. So I want to see more of him. I want to see more of Leeds. And I think you can afford to take some time because I don't think Villa, Palace, Arsenal they're okay fixtures. But you're right, the Leicester-Fulham pairing is probably looks to be the most profitable fixtures over this run. Villa could be. With Villa, you just don't know what you're going to get. I don't see Leeds thrashing them. And the Palace away, I think Palace are a much better defensive team than the data suggests, and Arsenal are strong defensively. So I don't think Leeds are going to score more than a couple of goals in any of these games. Leicester away, Fulham at home, that could be where you want to get on board. And by then we can be a bit more confident in what Sinistera is, what he presents us. But so I wouldn't move off Martinelli myself, but Yeah, he could be vital. I mean, it's another one in the mix, and it's good. I welcome it.
I just love watching him. He's one of those players where every
Yeah.
time he does anything, I'm like, oh, why don't I own him? Because he's so exciting to watch. I mean, the shots per 90 at 2 isn't in the top 10, but it's not far off. Chances created is really low. So you're almost reliant on these kind of goals where he skins about 3 players and scores. But he's a hell of a player, hell of a talent, and you've got to think he's only going to get better because he's been injured and he's learning the new structure and the new system. So maybe you're right. Maybe this is the case where we just have a bit of patience and wait. But he's 0.8% owned. It's really tempting to jump on him quickly, and I think he's going to be someone that we mentioned kind of throughout the season, but we never really get because there's always 4 other midfielders who are just slightly above where he is.
Well, this is it. Unless you're playing 5 in midfield, because you've got good mid-price options now, and you've got one of Salah, De Bruyne, or Son to consider as well. So the slots available to you for mid-price for 6.5 around that price. Yes, you'd have to sell Martinelli, and that it's a stretch for me. Martinelli's been strong, hasn't he?
Yes.
Ridiculous, that Martinelli price. The longer the season goes on, the more ridiculous that looks, doesn't it? So,
just make him 7. Just make him 7. Don't make him 6. Come on.
That's done, isn't it? It's done.
It's never done. It's done, but we'll never stop going on about it. Let's talk about some of the mid-price midfielders. I mean, Zaha is someone who is getting a lot of investment. I went for Maddison. You went for Bowen. There's some Sakas kind of knocking around as well. Got the fixtures kind of on the bottom of the screen here. I mean, if you're going to pick one going forward, I mean, it was really tricky last week, wasn't it? Because Maddison had Spurs, which didn't look great on paper. He got the goal, which was great. A lot of people went for Bowen against Everton. He had the highest XGI in that game, 0.43, but didn't get anything from it. And now you look at these stats, and it all points towards Zaha, doesn't it? Is he someone that you're thinking of moving for?
He's someone I've got.
You got? Oh, he's one of the early moves, is he?
Yeah. So I didn't want to. I had exact money to get him and Haaland, and I didn't want to. And they were both like on the cusp of a rise. They haven't risen yet, but they're going to rise, I think, before deadline. And I didn't want to be monitoring the prices over the international break, so I just moved. And got Zaha and Haaland in, because I look at this period and think Zaha's a lock for me. Yeah, Chelsea at home, difficult fixture, I guess, but it's the kind of game Zaha turns up in, and then Leeds, Leicester, Wolves, Everton, Southampton. And this is, I mean, that Wolves at home, Wolves are a good defensive team, but I would think Leeds, Leicester, Everton, Southampton.
Yeah, I know, it's nice.
There's profit here. He's on penalties, isn't he, as well? Okay, he's not playing the central striker, but he's still the XGI non-penalty per 90 is the strongest of these players we've got on screen now. Saka has the missing fixture. Bowen is on penalties as well, we believe, but has been disappointed. I've still got Bowen. Yeah, I think you need 2 of these 4 myself, and for me now it's Zaha and Maddison look the best options here. I'm going to have patience with Bowen. He's got Wolves and Fulham at home next, and I think they're good fixtures. And he's on penalties, and I do expect West Ham to come out of this malaise that they're in. But Maddison looks hugely tempting as well. I haven't got him yet, and you have, but yeah, I think Zaha and Maddison are the 2 if I was wildcarding, those are the 2 I would go for.
He's got a hell of a point to prove, Maddison, hasn't he? I mean, not being selected for the kind of World Cup, preliminary squad, if you can call it that. I mean, he's got to feel like he should have a place in that team. For a team that is struggling to create chances from open play, I'm not saying he should be a starter by any means, but to not have him, I mean, he's such a creative player in the side, and I think his omission is a bit. I mean, I am very biased because I love him, but I would have him in the squad for a game in which we're struggling to unlock teams. He's
gonna think he's got a chance of getting in, but then arguably, Bowen is as well, right? Bowen needs to step up too. I'm surprised. You've got to think he's going to push on soon at some point, and he did look the most likely for West Ham, and I think if West Ham are going to break out of this, Bowen will flourish, and so I'm hopeful that I don't have to move Bowen to Maddison, and that I'll get something from him against Wolves, and then I'll be okay holding on. Game week 12 at Liverpool's difficult, but if he proves, if he starts showing up, I'll probably retain him. But Maddison, for me, he is dragging that Leicester team forward, isn't he? They haven't got Vardy. Vardy's not as prominent as he used to be anymore in that team. So while Iheanacho and Daka have talent, they are not the talismans that are going to bring them, pull them through matches. And Maddison, when he was interviewed after the Spurs game, looked absolutely distraught that they'd lost and conceded so many goals. And he feels like he's the heart and soul of that team now, because Tielemans probably is looking at the transfer window and going, I'm off in January.
Yeah.
Maddison feels to me like he is committed and trying to drag them out of where they are. And so I think, I'm confident that his head's still in the game with Leicester, and he's got to be very much thinking, if I get goals and assists between now and the World Cup, I've got a chance. So, yeah, I buy into it, definitely.
Yeah, he wears his heart on his sleeve, James Bennett. You can tell from his interviews and the way he talks about wanting to get more goals, like for the side. I think he feels like he owes a lot to Brendan Rodgers as well for taking his game up to kind of the next level. I think he feels like he owes a lot to Leicester as well, because they took him from Norwich when he was in the Championship. He's not a player who would down tools, I don't think. I mean, he's had the injuries and problems with that, and he's been supported through all that. But I think he very much is the heart and soul of that side, and they've got a good run now. They're going to need to pick up points. They're going to need him. So yeah, I like him. I really like Zaha though as well. I mean, look at all these stats. I mean, you look at he's had the most big chances. He's got the best goal conversion by far, most touches in the box, most shots in the box, and obviously the best XG non-penalty per 90. So he's a great option. I mean, I'll talk about my transfers later, but he's on my radar. But I probably won't be able to get him because I'm going to have to move on another player who.
What do you blame me for going with it early? Because I mean, like going early is a risk. But I looked at it and thought, I don't want to miss out on Zaha by 0-1. Near the deadline.
Well, I mean, when you look back at the team data defence, I mean, Chelsea are in 14th. So Potter hasn't been there for that long, and he's going to take a while to kind of turn that around. So it's a good time for Palace to play Chelsea. So no, I think it's perfectly viable to move early. You're right, by the way. You're kind of doing your...
Yeah. No, I'm fine. No, I'm all good. No.
I'm going to have to leave you in a set to go to the bathroom, which is going to be fun.
Oh, my God. I can't believe your bladder is ridiculous. Is it the anal beads? Are they getting in the way?
Yeah, they've been vibrating all day, and it sets you off.
You've got to.
I might go now. Actually, I'll leave you with forwards. You can take the screen, can you?
Blimey. Okay, I'll talk about this. Yeah,
Nunes at the top, and some guy called Haaland.
Go on, then, go and take your break. So forwards. It's interesting. Like I said last season, if Solanke had those fixtures for the price that you can get him, we would be snapping him up. When you think of the fact that we had some woeful form, like Weghorst, need I say more? This season, we're treated to the fact that obviously Haaland and Kane are, and particularly Haaland's elite, but Tony and Mitrovic, I think, have done what we hoped they would do. Tony has kicked on and Mitrovic has delivered exactly as he did in the Championship, and those two are very difficult, I think, to dislodge. Isak has been an option. He was pretty dreadful last time out, and he now has the injury, so he's not in the game. But even when we look further down the list, I think Mopé's been showing up for Everton, looks handy, but I wouldn't go there, of course. Solanke's next. I mean, you've got to think Solanke in the pecking order of things, he's not too far behind given the fixtures, but for me, you just don't look beyond Mitrovic and Tony. And then, like Az has got, you could have Haaland and Kane. So where do you find it? And we haven't talked about Jesus. A lot of people have moved off Jesus, and I see why, because obviously game week 12 is a factor. Martinelli and Free City, can you afford to be carrying Jesus into 12 as well? Probably not. And the other thing about Jesus is, while his data's been good and his form has been fantastic, he's not that traditional centre forward figure that Haaland and Kane is. He's not in the box as much as we'd like to see him, and if anything, he's coming too deep and getting involved in build up too much, and that's almost made him disposable in a world where Mitrovic and Tony are those talismanic centre forwards. So I'm not surprised to see Jesus being sold, but like Salah, I think he will come back onto our radar as well. So in a world where we've got these options, it's very hard for Solanke to break in, even with those fixtures. And by the way, while you're away, I mentioned Mopé. Done all right. Done all right. No, I don't,
I'd say he's had one good game and one bad game, which is, actually not a bad strike rate for him. But yeah, he made the difference against West Ham. He played well. He led the line well in that match. He was poor in the game before. I sold Jesus, and I can't think of too many more reluctant sales than selling him. I mean, forgetting his ownership and all that, I just think he is the figurehead for that Arsenal attack, which is doing so well.
Does he scare you?
Does he scare me?
Not having him? Does he scare you not having him?
Yeah, because I think he can score in any game. I think he can score multiple goals in every game, the way Arsenal are playing. And I think actually he's got 4 goals and 3 assists. And actually, in what I've seen, I think he's probably unlucky to only have those returns. He's played really well. So the striker spots are so difficult because there's so many that I want. But I imagine Jesus will be back in my side probably after Gameweek 12.
Really? So what will you do? You'll downgrade Kane to Jesus, will you? Because you're not going to sell Mitrovic, are you?
No, I think Mitrovic and Haaland are locks probably for the season, and then it will be that third spot which just kind of moves around. I mean, it depends. I mean, it's a lot of money between Jesus and Kane, so it's what I can do with that extra 3 million. I mean, going into that Leeds game without Jesus is going to be horrible because he could get a number of returns in that game. Tricky, tricky.
I don't know. I mean, like because Martinelli's a lock. I guess if you move off Martinelli, then yes. But because Martinelli's a lock, you've got to be, you've got to want to double up on Arsenal's attack. And with the forward options we've got, it might be a while before Jesus comes back into the reckoning. It really depends if Tony can keep up the returns that he's been getting, and that's questionable because I think I don't know whether Tony's a lock. He's certainly not as solid in my team as Mitrovic is. So I think that one forward spot while we're playing 3 up front could come available, but at the moment Tony's got it, and he's ahead of Jesus for me at the moment with game week 12 a factor.
I mean, it's interesting with Mitrovic as well, because I mean he's 17th out of forwards in terms of XGR non-penalty per 90, 0.47. So I mean, if you were purely looking at these stats, you would, not put him as highly as we were rating him when we were putting him in the kind of season keeper bracket. But the stats don't really paint that picture. But I guess that's what you learn from watching the games and seeing what he's about and how he is that kind of complete talisman for Fulham.
But so many of his chances are headers, right? And that has an impact on his XG. If you look at the data across, he's in the top 10 for other areas, right? Shots per 90, 4.4, which is strong. Shots in the box, 3.5. So big chances, 1 point. He's getting a big chance every game, and he's got the penalties like Tony, right? So, and Fulham are a team which they're credit to Silva. He's come up and he's kept that ethos that he showed in the Championship. They're playing good, open, expansive football. Then they haven't got that same pragmatic approach that we talked about Bournemouth having. And so when they go into a game that's a good fixture, you do see him scoring 2, maybe even 3 goals. So that's in his favour, isn't it?
Yep. A few people asking about Mitrovic's injury. From what I understand, he had a bit of an injury in the first game of the international, started the second game, got subbed, had a bit of an ice pack on his leg.
Yeah, and he's limping, right?
And he's limping, but come on, he's never scored against Newcastle. 3 games he's had, no goals, but he's going to want to play, and he'll.
Oh yeah, and unless his leg is hanging off, I think he would want to be on that pitch and will be on that pitch. So
and they'll get him on because Silva has to play him because they're important.
Yeah. So I think he'd be all right.
I would be absolutely astounded if he didn't start that match. I like this screen. You've called it the Isaac succession plan. It reminds me of Isaac's Success. Remember him?
Exactly. That was the pun. You got it. That was exactly the pun I was looking for.
Very good.
Isaac's Success.
Very intricate pun that relies on some some crazy 4.4, 4.5. I had him. I played him quite often. Isaac's Success. I don't think I ever got anything from him once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
useless.
No, there you go. What a player he was. What an enigma. What's your thoughts on Isaac? I mean, obviously he's out for a while now. We think 2 or 3 weeks is confirmed. Is that correct? Yeah. And looking at this is the Solanke conversation again. Look at the data. He doesn't stand up to comparison to Tony and Mitrovic so far. You are back in. If you are going Solanke over one of these two, and it would be Tony, I imagine.
It's pretty grim
reading.
You
are going on the basis. Yeah, you're going on the basis of the fixtures, but you look at Brentford's fixtures, and they're not bad. No. They're not bad at all, are they? Yeah, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Brighton at home. Those 3 could be tough, but then Villa, Wolves, Forest. There's and Tony has stepped up, hasn't he? Tony has. He's got more to his game this season. It's fair to say. And Brentford have been better and more expansive than I expected. I thought, Ericsson coming in was what triggered Tony's Tony's upturn last season, and I thought he would struggle to be in our thinking, but they've looked all right, Brentford, and they've scored goals in games. So, again, we've said before, I think it's tough to make a case for Solanke even with the fixtures.
Yeah, I'm not totally sold on Tony either. I still think he drops deep a bit too much and gets other players into the game. And I know he got that hat trick, but other than that, I don't watch games and not own him and feel like I have to move for him really quickly. That's the kind of the main thing. Whereas I don't have that feeling with Mitrovic. I think if you haven't got Mitrovic and you've got Isak, you obviously move for him. He's the obvious one. Yeah, I mean, Solanke is just, for the benefit of the podcast listeners, I mean, he's in terms of Tony, Solanke and Mitrovic all compared to each other, the only thing Solanke is doing better on is baseline bonus per 90. So we're talking, touches in the box, shots, big chances, touches in the box. He's the worst of all three. It is purely just for those fixtures. In terms of Isak, though, I mean, Wilson is back or imminently back. I think that probably pushes Isak out wide to one of the wing spots.
Could do.
The right, because St Maximin's going to play on the left, which obviously reduces appeal a bit. If he's playing up front, I think he's a good option because Wilson will get injured again. And when he does,
I was going to say,
comes back in.
Isak's only going to be wide for a couple of games until the cheese straws go again in the hamstrings.
He's such a good player. Such a good player, Wilson. Such a shame. Yeah. But yeah, I think for me, I think you go Mitrovic top and then Tony and then Solanke out these teams.
Yeah, he is next in the pecking order while Jesus is off the menu, isn't he? But it's a stretch for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's 4. I mean, Tony, Mitrovic, Kane, Jesus. That's 4 strikers I'd have over Solanke. There's probably another one.
Before you even mentioned Tony. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Okay. I think I did say Tony, didn't I? I can't remember.
Did you?
Yeah, maybe. Predictions. So it's annoying that you've predicted 10 less than me, that you missed a week. That irritates me.
I'm still beating you.
I know. Well, yeah, because you've got less wrong.
Yeah, I'm beating you on the percentage, yeah. But you had a good week last time out, though, didn't you? You got the Villa Southampton score bang on.
Yeah.
And then you got 4 other correct scores. So
5 out of 7. 5 out of 7, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. The only ones I got wrong with Newcastle, Bournemouth. I mean, I just thought Newcastle were going to win that comfortably. And then I went 1-0 West Ham, but got it around the wrong way. So, yeah, pretty close. You're beating me on correct outcomes, 47% to 43%. But my 10% correct scores, I think, is the best we've ever seen on this on this show. So.
But we both got to up our game. 50% is our minimum. That's where the benchmark is. Right?
Absolutely.
So let's get serious now with these. Come on.
43% is really poor on my side. Shout out to at Tricky FPL as well, who logs these for us each week. We appreciate it. Right, let's take a look at predictions this week. Arsenal Spurs. I took ages on this one. I just couldn't work out. The only reason I've gone for a 2-1 Arsenal and an Arsenal win is because Arsenal do seem to historically beat Spurs at home. That just they just do. So given that they're playing well and there's not much in it, I think I'd just edge for them. So I've gone for 2-1. You've gone for an on the fence draw.
Yeah, I just think with Son snapping as he did, and he's going to be. You'd think he's going to be a factor in this game more than he's been to this point. I mean, I saw him in the flesh at Forest. He was very disappointing, but confidence is back in those legs now, and he's going to be a big concern for Arsenal. So I do see Spurs scoring goals, but equally I see Arsenal breaching the Spurs defence. So 2-2 was the one I settled on, but it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. Certainly no way near a garden centre am I going at 12:30 on Saturday, that's for sure.
There's some really good games. There's some really good games this week. I mean, you've got the 2 derbies, Arsenal, Spurs, City United, and you've got Leicester Forest, which is already a kind of relegation battle. Liverpool, Brighton.
West Ham Wolves.
West Ham Wolves. Yeah, that's probably the garden centre.
I've got to say, Pippa said she's booked me in for like a barbecue, and I looked at it and thought, what's the 5:30 game? I had to look at that. Well, I'm going to have Bowen. You know what? I don't mind recording that and seeing that later. I don't think that's a classic, is it? But, I could be wrong.
I don't think so, no. Go down the list. Bournemouth, Brentford. I've gone for a 1-0 Brentford. You've gone for a 1-1. Bournemouth, Brentford.
They'll get under O'Neill, bit of revival. They got the result of Forest. Scored against Newcastle as well. I think they'll get something, yeah.
Yep. Palace, Chelsea, both gone for 2-1. Chelsea.
Yep.
Won't be easy for them, but you'd expect Potter to get his first win.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Chelsea should have too much for them, but I think it's another good game.
Yep. Fulham, Newcastle. I've gone for different results here. I've gone for a 2-1 Newcastle. You've gone for a 2-1 Fulham. Mitrovic brace.
Yeah, really impressed with Fulham. Really impressed with Fulham, and I think they've got a really settled way of playing. Really good first 11. I mean, obviously, the caveat is Mitrovic has got to be fit, but if he is, I fancy him. I think they're good at home. So I'll give them the victory here. So it's good that we got the difference there.
I can't believe Forest lost to Fulham again after leading. Oh, not good.
Well, I don't want to talk about it.
No,
really.
I bet. Liverpool Brighton. We've both gone for a draw. I've gone for 3-3. You've gone for a 1-1.
Come on, you think this new manager is going to come in and instantly going to ruin the defence and pep up the attack? Do you?
Yep.
Wow.
I think Liverpool are get atable, even with Thiago back. It's two completely contradicting styles. I mean, last year we came back from 2-0 down and drew 2-2. And I think it's going to be a fun game. New manager, new ideas, not fully being able to implement them yet. Yeah, high scoring game, exciting one. Looking forward to it.
An on the fence 1-1 from me.
Yeah, but essentially we've both gone for a draw and not a Liverpool win. Southampton Everton. This is another Garden Centre game, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I've gone for a 1-1. You've gone for a 1-0 Southampton.
Yeah, don't want to talk about that too much, but yeah, I see Southampton nicking it. I often underrate Southampton in these predictions, but I don't see Everton scoring. Tight game, little in it, 1-0.
I've given them a few wins. Southampton, they've let me down, so I'm less I'm less optimistic about that. West Ham Wolves, I just think they're pretty much as bad as each other, so I've gone for a 1-1. You've gone for a 1-0 West Ham. No goals for Costa there. Do you reckon Costa comes into the lineup? Maybe.
I don't think so. I don't think they have to start him. I think Wolves have still got options. I think he's an impact sub for me. I don't see him being a starter for them.
We really do need to get a Garden Centre logo. That's a very good point.
Yeah, we need a little shrub or something, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. What should it be? What represents a garden centre best? I don't know, these days. People go to garden centres for fire pits and stuff now, don't they? They don't really go for plants anymore.
We can't put a fire pit next to it.
You can't.
Like a gnome?
I don't know. I go there at Christmas for my decorations. A gnome would be a good one. Yeah.
A gnome or a shrub. A shrub is a shrubbery, as the Monty Python guys would say. City United. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think United could get something out of this, but I've gone for a 2-0 City win. It's the kind of game, isn't it, that United are going to, if they go back to their kind of Solskjaer days of invite the press and look to counter and soak up the pressure as much as they can.
They had some joy with that, didn't they?
They did, against City and against other teams as well. It's just whether City score early, I think. I just think the Haaland factor is big, and he's going to be up for this. All the Roy Keane stuff that went on, his dad in the stands and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think someone said in the chat he's either going to get 4 or get a red card, which might even do both. I just think they are going to have too much for United, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the game because I thought Arsenal would have too much for United in that game, and they looked like they were going to for long periods, but United just soaked up the pressure and then just hit them on the counter, which was classic United of the last few years. So, you've gone for 2-1, so you're thinking it's going to be more of a game. Yeah,
I think it'll be a decent game. I think United will put up a fight. It's really interesting to see how Ten Hag deals with the City tactics and how he sets them up. So we don't know yet. It's very difficult to say how this is going to go. With Solskjaer, we knew how that was going to go. We knew what the game plan was going to be. With Ten Hag, we don't. So we can only really speculate. I do think United will put up a fight, though, and it won't be easy for City. And City they've conceded goals, they've conceded ground to teams. They will give up some chances. I think they are still defensively the best side in the league, but Ederson's had more to do this season for sure. That's my perception. So I think United could have a goal in them again, but I think City will have too much. Yeah.
Yep. Another player who wasn't in the England, so that was Sancho. He'll be desperate to kind of prove his worth as well. Some big calls from Southgate. I mean, he hasn't really been that good, so it's not a huge surprise.
No, he didn't deserve the call up, does he? But he got the goal last time, didn't he? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. With Bowen, with Maddison, with Sancho, these are some big names for England who are going to, haven't got long now. Got 2 months to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Leeds Villa. Now this is very rare for you. Not only have you not gone for a Leeds win, but you've also not gone for an Aston Villa loss. You've gone for a draw, a 1-1.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Gerrard and Villa. Still don't. I still don't think it's a happy camp. I still don't think he knows his best 11, etc. But I just see them. They're not going to get any risks. It's going to be a very pragmatic performance and set up again. I think it's going to be hard for Leeds to break them down. They're going to be organised, I expect. So I just don't think very many goals and not the spectacle that we want from this game. So I'm not that optimistic on this one. I think all the viewing pleasure is going to be City United, and Leeds Villa is going to be an unsatisfying dessert to follow that. But we'll see. 1-1 for me.
Yeah, I think Gerrard basically said, didn't he? He went back to basics against Southampton, wanted to grind out a win.
What does that mean? Back to basics.
Back to basics. Classic textbook.
That's Allardyce all over it, really.
Well,
that's not what you want to hear.
I think basically what it means is like stop all your creative players creating anything. Have them all play really. Game. Oh my god, it was so bad. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen.
Oh, definitely.
Genuinely.
Even McGinn at the end of the game, they won it 1-0. He almost apologised, didn't he?
It was watching Coutinho just try these outrageous long balls that were just going absolutely nowhere. And it was just like, why? What's happened to you?
We know why, because Gerrard's trying to save his job. So,
it was really painful. I've gone for 2-1 Leeds. I'm just hoping that a slightly more attacking brand of football wins out in that. But yeah, again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was lower scoring than that. And then Leicester Forest. I think the manager who loses this gets the chop.
Cooper ain't going anywhere. I said I was on Planet FBL or FBL Planet, as you like to call it.
I do.
And I said to James, there'll be uproar if Cooper gets sacked. It could happen, but the only way it could happen is if there's a big name coming in, right? Because you can't replace Cooper with a run-of-the-mill manager who's not a big name, who's not going to. The supporters are going to look at and go, okay, I see why we've moved from Cooper. We owe him a lot, Cooper. He's got so much credit in the bank that it would have to be a Tuchel-like appointment for Forest fans to go with it, I think. My
question to you, though, is does the owner share the same sentiment as the fans? Because often, you could be an absolute... look at Ranieri for Leicester. Like, there wasn't exactly Leicester fans calling for his head, and they made the decision to get rid of him. I mean, the Nottingham Forest owner has spent a lot of money, bought in a lot of players, and if he doesn't feel like Cooper's the man to get the most out of them, is it not better to react quickly? And from his point of view,
that could happen. But the only way I think he would feel he can get away with that, and the supporters would back it, would be if he's bringing in a huge name, like a top elite manager. You can't, you couldn't get rid of Cooper and bring in a middle of the road, Championship manager, or a failed Premier League manager who's come back back from the dead or something. It would have to be a Tuchel level appointment. It'd have to be an elite level manager who we look at and think, blimey, okay, well, you can't argue with that, because Cooper is such a hero for me and many Forest fans that I think we'd be on the streets if he sacked him. Even if we lost at Leicester, we would be devastated, I think. So I think he knows that. He knows the connection with the fans. He can't risk it, I don't think. He can't risk it. Because if we lose the support, we're down anyway. So if he makes a decision, he's got to make a decision that he thinks the support will be behind, and that is going to be a hell of a appointment to replace Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas in the chat says it wasn't the same for Bielsa at Leeds.
That is true, but they were plummeting, weren't they? And the tactics weren't working, and I think that is the same for Cooper at the moment. But I think he'll give Cooper a chance to change it. Now, if we go to Leicester, nothing changes tactically, and we lose 4-0, then maybe I'll be singing a different tune. But I think Cooper's good enough where he will go. Cooper will recognise he's got to change something, because the owners will be looking and going, well, we're going to give you time, but only if you show that you're reacting to what's happened so far and you're changing things tactically, or you're changing your team selection. If they see it stay the same, then yes, it'll be a Bielsa scenario, where it's like, we can't afford to lose this status. It's taken us 23 years to get it. If we think we've got a man who can keep us up, we will move to that manager. But who would that be? As I said, it has to be a bloody big name. I mean, for me to be behind it, and for other Forest fans to be behind it. It's just interesting
that we've both gone for a Leicester win here. I've gone for a 2-0, you've gone for a 2-1. I think that would be...
No, that wouldn't be enough. No. We'd have to. It wouldn't be enough for Cooper to get the sack. Defeat wouldn't be enough. Defeat with nothing looks better. We don't play well, and we get, it looks like we can get picked off at any given moment. Then that would be bad. But I don't think I think it'll be a good game. We'll be in it, but I think Leicester will probably have too much for us. I think the Villa game after that is more important. That's a home game, and Villa are definitely beatable, because I don't think they're in a good state, and I think they're for the taking. With our support behind the team, if we put on a performance at Leicester, even if we lose, if there's positive signs at Leicester, even in defeat, Cooper keeps his job and we beat Villa, I think.
Okay. But 4-0 Leicester and you might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Oof,
yeah, of course.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right, before we look at our team, just take a quick look at the captain matrix. It's Haaland. Then he doesn't have a game. So we can't pick him in game week 12. He's still on the captain matrix in 12. Obviously, that game's cancelled, so we can't pick him that week.
Yeah, of course. So should have taken. Why did I not take that off? Yeah, absolutely.
I should have checked. Game week 11 is interesting because Haaland plays Liverpool. Obviously, someone like Kane, or if you've got Son, for example, plays Everton. Also, Arsenal have got that really good-looking game against Leeds. So Jesus, for example, Salah's done well against City as well, so it could be an option. So game week 11, there could be a bit of going against Haaland. Yeah. Game week 12 there will be because he hasn't got a game, but every other match is probably just going to be Haaland, isn't it? I would still go. I would go Salah this week though. If I had it.
But I think like in my position now, and if you're a manager who's not happy with their rank and wants to make ground, you've got to look for opportunities to go against Haaland. And 11 and 12, obviously 12, you're going to, and 11. I think you've got to put yourself in a position to get either Son and Kane to give yourself that opportunity. So I will probably be moving De Bruyne out because he doesn't play 12, and I'll be going to Son in 11 and probably captaining him in 11 against Everton at home, and then obviously taking Son and into game week 12 and beyond. Probably won't get De Bruyne back if Son becomes what I hope he will be, which last season was an elite player pushing Salah all the way. So 11 and 12 are the key game weeks really for players and managers who want to catch up, because there's room there. And I think it's about positioning yourself to get yourself in the best position possible for 11 and 12. Where do you go with the captaincy in 12? If you don't have Salah, you probably are looking at the likes of Maddison and Mitrovic, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a kind of roll of the dice, isn't it? I mean, not having Salah for that game, I think is going to be tricky, and it might even be something I look to address. Who have Spurs got that week?
Spurs have got United, so they're not a shoe-in either. Again, if you've got Son, which you should have Son and Kane ahead of the game week 11 game against Everton, you would be tempted if they show form to go with a Spurs attacker away at United, maybe, depending on where United are at that point. We think they're improving, so maybe not. It's a difficult decision. Maddison at home to Leeds in that Thursday game does look appealing, which is one of the reasons why I've got to think moving Bowen to Maddison, because Bowen's at Liverpool in that game is the way to go. So right now, I would say, unless Brighton come good, because Brighton have got Forest, and if your man's going to come in and have the impact you say and you think, then a Brighton player could even be a captaincy option. But for me, right now, it's owning a Spurs player in game week 11, and it's giving yourself the Maddison option in game week 12 looks the way to go, unless we see Salah start to be revived as an option and Liverpool scoring more goals.
I mean, Trent potentially. West Ham are still struggling to score goals and that kind of thing. There'll be a big spread of captains that week. It'll be very interesting. Let's look at the captain data for this week, because again, I do think you can make a case for quite a few different players this week. I mean, Haaland obviously is going to be the player who on these stats charts shows up so strongly. I mean, next year non-penalty penalty of 1.02 is absolutely nuts. Most big chances, most shots in the box. Obviously, 11 goals, crazy. Well, looking at the teams, I mean, if we both agree that we don't really think Palace are a team to necessarily target. They're playing Chelsea this week, but the data does suggest that if you do have a Reece James or a Sterling, they might be an okay option, but a lot of people won't have that, and not people are going to move in for like Havertz or Mount and Potter. Who knows who Potter's going to line up in this match? So we're kind of ruling that game out. But Forest are next, so we talked about Maddison as a potential captain option for 12. I mean, is he a potential captain option for this week?
There's a lot of support for him on Twitter, isn't there? There's a lot, and I guess if you have to go against Haaland and you don't have Salah, he is probably, he is the next best option, I would say. Particularly with Mitrovic potentially not being fit, and we don't know. I wouldn't do it. I think there's something in that game for Maddison, because I do think Leicester will beat us. I've predicted that, so I think there's a return in it. But I don't think there's a good enough reason to go against Haaland this week. United's defensive data isn't brilliant. City are by far the best attack in the league. We saw earlier, they're creating 4 big chances a game, averaging that per 90. They will create against United. Haaland will get opportunities. So I think De Bruyne is probably the only option. I'm considering going De Bruyne over Haaland just for the differential, but I probably won't. I probably, with the penalties and with the big chances that will come his way, De Bruyne probably will get something out of the game if City win and Haaland score. There's a good chance he will, but will he outscore Haaland? Don't know. For me, that's the only route. If you don't have Salah, is you'd go De Bruyne. Madison, it's too far of a stretch for me at the moment.
The one other player to mention is Arsenal, right down, right up or down, depending which way you look at it. They're the best defence out of the teams that we're listing. Actually, non-penalty conceded of 0.76. But Harry Kane, he has 13 goals in 15 appearances against Arsenal and 2 assists. So he returns something every game against Arsenal, in theory. He scored more goals against Arsenal than any other player in Premier League history as well. He took over from, I think it was Rooney, last season. If you're into that kind of stats and that kind of thing, and you believe, Harry Kane has always struck me as a player who feeds off that kind of record. He's certainly not a bad option, but I think the ceiling for him is probably lower than some of the other players. So,
I think there are fixtures where, as we said, Everton in game week 11. I think I would go Kane or Son over Haaland in that game week. I think that there's enough stacked in favour of the Spurs attackers to make you move off Haaland. But this week, it's a home game for City. It's a away game for Spurs. Local derby Spurs. I've said 2-2, so I think Kane will get something out of the game. But it could easily be 0-0 as well. The London derbies are very hard to read in terms of what kind of game we get. Whereas I think City, it's a home win. I think United will put up some barriers, but City will get through them. And you've got to think Haaland will get something from the game. You've got to think he gets something from most home games this season, right? So why would you go against that? At the moment,
he plays or on the bench or whatever, he's still
You've got to have a good reason to go against Haaland, and I don't think this week makes a strong enough case.
No, I think I agree with that. Like I said, I think Salah for me is the only one that I'd go for, but even then, I still think it would be a bit of a coin flip. Right, let's take a look at our teams then, and then I've got a wildcard team that I can show, because I know quite a few people on wildcards. Let's start with your team then, and you've got Raya in goal, Trent, Trippier, James, Zaha, De Bruyne, Bowen, Marcelli, Mitrovic, Haaland, and Tony. You have got De Bruyne captain at the moment.
Yeah, that was. I might do. I'm not ruling it out. I as I said, they're linked, aren't they? It's like the Son and Kane thing. Haaland can outscore De Bruyne, but De Bruyne's outscored him in 2 games already this season. I think it's 3-2 to Haaland at the moment in terms of outscoring each other. So, and De Bruyne is a big game player. If it's a tight game, De Bruyne could come out on top here, but I probably will end up on Haaland because, like I say, I've got to select the weeks to roll the dice, and there's a couple coming up, obviously in game week 11 and then game week 12. So I don't need to push yet, I don't think. So I'll probably move it back to Haaland in the end, because I think I've got enough in this team that can get me some points back on people. I've got Trent, I've got Zaha, I've got Bowen, I've got Tony, and they're differential enough, that combination. If a couple of them come in, I can make up some ground. So I don't think I have to push and go against Haaland, but I might yet do it. So I'm happy with that team going forward. Good.
So you've done Kane to Haaland and Gibbs-White to Zaha.
Gibbs-White to Zaha, yeah. I had the exact money to do it. Yeah. And I just didn't want to miss out on Zaha going forward. And I look at that and think Bowen to Maddison is a future move, and then De Bruyne to Son, game week 11. So those are the planned moves. I've got Perisic on the bench there. So in games where I think Perisic starts and can return, Arsenal away might not be one of them, but Perisic is a player I can bring into that 11 and it can have an impact. And again, he's a decent differential. So I like the team. I don't think there's too much wrong with that at the moment. So while I'm struggling rank-wise, I look at my team and think I'm quite happy with that. So let's see what happens.
Doesn't look like a team of someone ranked 5.4 million.
No, but it never has it? It's just I've managed to skillfully move my players around to that. It always looks like a decent team, but it's never delivered points, and that's a bit of a problem in fantasy.
That's what Luke's always done as well.
Yeah.
He's always managed that, but now he's gone to the dark side, so he's
you see, he's playing sensibly now.
Yeah. Boring.
The computer will crash eventually. Then he'll go back to normal.
Hope so. My team, I've got Ward or Henderson in goal. Don't know which one. Probably Ward.
You got to play Henderson.
You think? Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. I've got Leicester to win to 0, and
do you? Oh, okay. You think Forest won't score? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Blimey, if we don't score at Leicester, we are in trouble.
I don't really care. I think they both get low
you
points.
Don't really care. My God. Right.
That's just where I'm at with goalkeepers.
It's a lesser. It's two evils, isn't it? What do you choose?
Yeah.
Back in the the Leicester or the Forest defences, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Ward has got the better fixture, but Henderson's probably got the bigger ceiling of points and saves and stuff. So I don't know. Ward probably won't play anyway, so it'll come out a decision for me. And then it's Trent, Diaz, Trippier, Foden, Maddison, Martinelli and Gross. I mean, look at my midfield now. Now I've taken Salah out. I've got no premium mid, so Foden is now my most expensive.
I know. I just noticed
midfielder.
that.
It's weird, isn't it? It looks really weird. It freaks me out a bit.
I don't like it. Are you sleeping all right? Because I would be worried about that. No, I just no comfort blanket of a 10 million plus mid.
No, I can't remember the last time.
How much have you got in the bank?
Like 1.7, something like that.
Right.
I'll tell you what my move is in a sec. Haaland captain, Kane and Mitrovic. I've got two options. I could get another mid-price mid, which would be Gross to Zaha, because I do like Zaha going forward. But I'm also, like I've been talking about, I'm so excited about Brighton attack and Gross.
You can't possibly sell Gross after what you said tonight. No chance. I would never let you
really
live that
sell
down.
Gross. No. So instead, it's going to probably be a Stupinian to James, which I've got the money for.
Yeah.
Which doesn't. Right. I can't really see how that can go wrong, which means it probably will.
So what's your plan for Kane then? Because presumably you want to keep him with 12 in mind, and you want to captain him in 11, do you? You want to go against Haaland in 11, right?
I think what I'd be looking to do is move Kane and Foden out in Gameweek 12 and bring Salah back in and captain him against West Ham.
Okay. So you're going to save the transfers to give yourself 2 in 12.
I think so.
So you move to Salah, and you would captain Salah then, would you, against West Ham?
Yeah. Yeah. So then that would get me my mid, because Foden's fixtures City's fixtures are decent sort of up until then. They've got Southampton at home next week. Okay, then Liverpool. That's fine. I can ride out for that. Yeah, I mean, it would be a bit of a reluctant sell for Foden, but to bring Salah back in.
I don't think he's difficult to sell at the moment. I think there's such good options in that price bracket that I think you can move to another player in that bracket and be content about it. And Zaha, the fixtures are very strong, aren't they? So if that's where you're going to go, or arguably,
Will it be Salah? I mean, because the thing is with Salah is, it's West Ham in 12, which we've already said he's probably the standout captain pick because there's not a huge amount of options. And then it's Forest, and then it's Leeds. Yeah. So
who's your replacement for Kane going to be?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. It would have to be someone around 7 million. So it could be a Tony. There's this guy who plays with Bournemouth. I don't know if you've heard of him, Dominic Solanke.
Yeah, he's. I've said all show. He's a shoe-in. Yeah, I guess you're going to move to my forward line then. It'll be Haaland, Tony, Mitrovic. Yeah, I mean, right? if Tony shows up.
I mean, the thing is with Gross from 12. I mean, in game week 12, Gross has got Forest, and then it's Man City, Chelsea. Then it's a decent run. So if Brighton are looking decently attacking, then I could just get away playing Gross, and move into to a cheaper forward. I don't know. There's a few things I can do, but
not getting Zaha though.
I know. Not getting Zaha does feel a bit weird.
Yeah.
I do want him, but not easy to move one of Foden, Maddison, or Gross.
No.
And I want James as well because I think he's just a standout. Too. Wildcard team. I sent this to you and you said it was all right, so that's something. Raya in goal, James, Cancelo, Trippier, Zaha, Salah, Sinistera, Maddison, Mitrovic, Tony, Haaland. Fairly dull, but it's got your Zaha in. It's got Maddison and Sinistera, who would be interesting. I kept Salah, but got rid of Trent. and then the front three with the 2 mid-price forwards and Haaland. I think that looks pretty strong, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean the big decision there is obviously Salah, right? And I think that going with Salah and hoping for the revival in his output. I mean, he's not been, the output's been decent. It's just the data and the eye test hasn't been as strong as we would expect. And the fixtures aren't easy for them, but I think it's worth going there because it's going to differentiate you potentially. It gives you that captain option in 12, of course, that some won't have unless they can save their transfers and move to him. So I think it's probably a powerful thing to do. The rest of the team kind of picks itself. Rayo, as we discussed, is probably the better of a bad bunch at the moment in goal. James and Cancelo, I can see why you go Cancelo, no Trent at the moment. I wouldn't move off Trent, like I said, but would I move to him? No, probably I would go Cancelo. Trippier, you've got to, I think, he's in most teams. He's got to be in the wildcard teams. Zaha, we've talked about. Maddison, I think, we've talked about as well. Makes sense. And the front three are the best front three to have at the moment, I think, if you're not going to have double up on Kane and Haaland, 2 heavy hitters. So it's just in Estero, really, which is the roll of the dice, I guess, there. You've gone for him over a Brighton midfielder. I personally would go Trossard. I would buy into your hype, and I would go Trossard because I just think he's your best player. And I would think the new manager would think the same, but who knows? We don't know yet. So I think, it's a good wildcard team, but it's not one that's going to rip up trees in terms of being differential, is it? Sinistera is about the only player there who people would look at and go, you're relying on Salah, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you want to make up ground with this, you're relying on Salah.
Yeah, I like it though. I mean, it's a typical thing. You put a wildcard team out. You think, why doesn't mine look like that? It looks great because it's got Zaha and it's got Cancelo, who I don't have. I think and it's got Salah. I mean, the only player I really had a lot of deliberation about was that second premium. Is it Haaland? Is it Salah? Is it Son? Is it De Bruyne? There's plenty of good options there. But I went for Salah just because I think this week is a week where you could be a bit different, and it seems weird to say that, but I think Salah is a differential captain this week.
The only thing there is you don't have a Spurs player for Gameweek 11 when they're at home to Everton, right? So, there is maybe if you're brave with that, you would go Son over Salah because you think that Son could get something at Arsenal and Salah against Brighton's not great, and then you take Son into 11 and then you swap to Salah in 12. But to do that, you've got to have the transfers and the money in the bank, or you've got to have 2 transfers going into 12. And if Salah shows up in the next 2 or 3 games going into 12, I think most of us will want him for that and want him as captain in Game Week 12. So a lot of what we've said about Salah tonight could change if against Brighton he starts to show more. He just starts to look like the Salah we saw last season. At the moment, we're not seeing that. I've not given up on him, as I keep saying, because there'll be people going, we're talking about the best FPL asset we've ever seen. So, I'm not totally against him at the moment, but I think I'd rather have De Bruyne or Son at the moment than go to Salah in 12.
Yeah, I mean, no Arsenal or Spurs in this wildcard team.
No.
Which is
fixtures though, isn't it, for Arsenal?
It's
That's the trouble.
Arsenal right down the bottom and they're blank, so that's why sort of someone like Marcel isn't in there. I had someone else I was going to mention, but I've forgotten who it is now. Oh, Diaz. Just I do wonder when Diaz is going to be a factor for us. Yeah.
I like him a lot because he's taken up central areas as well, and you can tell that Klopp is telling him to get into the box and to feed off the Trent crosses and the Salah centres. Right, it's not all about Núñez when they hit the box. It's also Diaz on the far post, and he's becoming a factor. And I've certainly not given up on him as an 8 million option either. The fixtures are tough for the next 3, but certainly he could be an option for Game Week 12. And if the captaincy isn't going to go, if I'm looking at the likes of Maddison for captain, Diaz could be in the equation as well.
Well, and Núñez as well, like you said, if Núñez gets a brace against Brighton, he's going to suddenly catapult himself up to...
Yeah, we haven't really touched on Núñez, have we, as a forward option? Could he break into that front 3? That front 3 looks pretty set for me, and Tony being the most vulnerable. And Núñez could give us reason to shake things up. Yeah, he could do. Firmino's still knocking about though, isn't he? That's the trouble. And Jota's still there as well. And I don't see Jota threatening Diaz's start yet. I do think Diaz has performed at such a level that he looks to be not the first name on the team sheet, but he's not. I don't think he's at risk as much as I thought he would be. I thought Jota would be a threat to him, but I don't see it at the moment. I think Diaz is the one big positive they've had this season so far. He's been strong.
Yep, and Jota coming in is going to shake things up even more because you just know where he's going to play. I mean, he's too good to not play. So
you'd think, yeah.
You've got to think he's going to share some minutes with Nunes, which complicates things. Right, we're nearly there. Black box leagues. We've got Mo Sebahi at the top. 517 points. He's got to be near the top, isn't he? He's having an incredible start to the season.
It's demoralising bringing this up, isn't it? Every week now, it's like in the state we're in. But well played, Mo. And
where is he in the world? Let me just have a quick check.
Where in the world?
308th.
Okay.
In the world.
We're not in the top 5 leagues yet. They got to pull their finger out of this lot.
Come on, Mo. Come on, David Hurley, who's second. Come on, Anthony Desange, who's third. Bryce and Jake Easton in fifth. Come on, pull your fingers out. We've got to get up there. But I mean, all these guys having great starts of the season. Tony Durdov, Tom Ford, Stephen Browner, Martin Eriksson, and Jonathan Treadaway rounding out the top 10. So keep it going, guys. Get into the top 10 in the world, and we'll be in the ascendancy for that. Got to mention something else you might have seen in the top right of the screen throughout this stream.
I just noticed that. You sneaked that in, haven't you?
Hoping for a bit of a subliminal messaging.
Look at us last year. Look at that.
So this was us last year. This was the Football Content Awards 2021. We won Best in Fantasy Football podcast, I believe, and we came second in video. Sorry, Best in Fantasy Football video.
FPL Wire One
and Wire
podcast.
That's it.
We beat Slippers to video, didn't we? Because we do one video a week, and Andy does 7 or 8, and we won.
I think
that's fair.
A little bit.
It's quality, not quantity, is what they said, was it? I don't know.
Something like that.
No, I don't know how we won that, but hopefully,
Well, this year you can vote for us again. We really would appreciate your votes. We'd love to win something again. They've moved the categories around, so now there's just creators and editorial. So in creators, there's Slippers, there's FPL Raptor, there's some other kind of names.
Focal.
No, he's not in creators. He's in best
Was
newcomer.
He not?
He's in best newcomer.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
So check out the list, and if you listen to all the podcasts and creators and stuff, then vote for your favourite. But we would love. We'll be going again to the event. We'd love to win again. I've got my trophy's just over there. If you can.
You even got a replica of it, didn't you? Because you gave it to me to take home, which you regretted instantly.
Well, you were like, "Oh, my son really wants to see it, so can I just take it?" And I gave it to you. And I was
Billy card.
You did.
Right.
You let me take the second place. Let me take the second place for the.
Yeah, I know. But Billy was thrilled that we won and stuff. So So if you wanna put a smile on a 10-year-old's face, vote for us now, and Azzy's face as well.
Absolutely.
I care about it too, but not as much as Az. Azzy's really into it. Right? But it's a good night out, isn't it, as well, we should say, because the FCA'S do a good job. There's a lot of content creators there from across the world of football as well, and it's great to see a lot of names from the community at the event too. So I'm looking forward to just going to the event, really. Winning will be nice, but I'll have a good night out anyway. Hopefully I've got the brownie points to go. But
good.
With my Forest home games, I'm struggling for brownie points this season. I'm spending so much going up to Nottingham. So
that's true. But you are missing the game at the Brighton Stadium. So
I am to go to pavement in Glasgow, though. That's not any brownie points saved, is it? That's
a shame.
No,
that's a shame. To vote for us, there's a link in the description. It's www.footballcontentawards.com/voting, and then you can find us on the list. Also, a shout out as well to Scout, Fantasy Football Scout, who obviously. We've got huge ties with. I work for them. Mark founded it and all that. They're in the best editorial category, and let's be honest, Fantasy Football Scout is by far the best editorial out there. Neil and Tom do absolutely amazing stuff over there. So if you're a fan of Scout and you've read all the articles and stuff, do consider that. Neil will be up in Manchester as well. I'm going to try and drag him along.
It's local for Neil, isn't it? Local. Almost.
No, he's he's down south a bit at the moment because he's staying with the in-laws.
Okay.
But maybe I don't really know where he is. Neil's an enigma. No one really knows where he talk about robots. I'm pretty sure
he'll be there late because they'll be doing the team news.
Exactly, that's the thing. That's his. Or he'll be doing it live from the event.
Yeah. Tireless worker.
So do follow that link. Do give us a vote, and do vote for Scout as well in editorial. We'd really appreciate it. But that's it. That's me done.
We're back.
We're back, baby.
You know what? It's hard. Do you find it hard to snap back into it? I mean, the international breaks are murder, aren't they? Absolute murder. And you know, I've had to kind of shift up the gears the last 24 hours or so. This has helped, but I think not until the deadline's passed and it kicks in that we've got FPL back and Premier League is back, will I fully engage with it. And then I don't think we've got another break now, have we? Surely it's all the way through now to the World Cup. Yeah. So it's going to be great now, this next run, and hopefully we can make a bit more of an impression on the ranks, right? We've got it. I mean, I'm doing badly, but you're no great shakes either, let's face it. So come on. Let's pull our fingers out. Let's get our act together.
Oh, God. I'm 17 points behind General. He's on my list.
Yeah, that's a good target to have. General's always a good target to have. So I'm sure he's not happy either. So
no, I know. You know. It's comforting in a way. There are some very, very good managers who.
It's tough.
It's a tough start to the season. But anyone who else is struggling, don't worry. We'll all turn it around together. It'll be fine.
Well, that's it. If you're struggling, this is the ideal podcast to watch because we're with it too, and hopefully we can push on together. Right?
Absolutely. So, yeah. And the FCA'S, you're not just voting for the best content creators in terms of ranks. You're voting for. The ones,
absolutely. Make that very clear.
The ones who'll put their arms around you and be like, don't worry, everything will be all right. That's us. Nice one. Mark, thank you so much. As always, we'll be back next week ahead of game week 11. Is that right? 11? 10? 11? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah.
Good to see you. I'll see you next week.
Good night from me.
Bye, everyone.